Oh shit! I forgot to post this on the website. I'm sorry. I totally forgot.
It's all good, man. It's all good. I think you posted on Instagram. I posted it on Instagram. Yeah. So here with the purveyor of Jay's analysis. Jay is a published author of Esoteric Hollywood and Esoteric Hollywood 2, which I've got a copy of his new book right here. Published author.
Deuces.
Oh, snap. Dropping deuces twice a day, every day.
The normal amount if you're on a carnivore diet, right? Not the
Well,
regular amount. What do you call it?
the Dr.
14
Dr.
14
Graves.
dozen. Okay.
14,
Dozen.
14 rules for pooping. No, I think that's what's his name? Dr. Greger. I was going to say Conor McGregor. Dr. Greger is the daily dozen bowel movement diet. And
Dr.
yeah.
Conor McGregor.
Dr. Conor McGregor. Oh, wow. All right, so they say Jay needs to be a little bit louder. I'm going to turn Jay up a little bit. Maybe I'll turn
Let's see,
myself.
I can do that on my end too. This Apple has a tendency to like reset the stuff. By the way, I'm echoing now, so maybe I need to turn.
Okay, well, I think what happens is on Google Hangouts, because we're using Google Hangouts, it automatically adjusts volume, and it can be a pain in the ass. So I can turn myself.
No,
I can turn my own.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, let's just make sure we're even. So yeah, it's nice to have Jay back. It's been a while. We planned this stream a couple weeks ago, and then we both had some scheduling issues, but now we're finally doing it. We're going to talk about vegan McActivism. I called the stream Vegan McActivism for the engineered revolution in Disney's heavy petting zoo. Quite the title there. Hopefully we can live up to the title. So Jay is a researcher. He's been talking a lot about social engineering, the massive push we see to direct culture through media, through things like music, through things like television, film. And then now we've got YouTube. And the new social engineering sphere seems to be social media. So we're going to talk about how media influences reality. We're going to talk about the engineered revolution and how veganism fits into this global revolution, how the push for a global dietary structure, for global dietary guidelines, ties into social engineering. So, yeah, Jay, what's up, dude?
Well, a funny thing, I just hung out with the budding goth rap star Wicca Phase Springs Eternal, and we got on the subject of diet. And we were hanging out backstage, and we were talking about his diet, and he talked about his diet issues a little bit. And guess who I recommended he check out?
Dr. Greger.
No.
Oh, come on. Well, Dr. Greger's a daily dozen,
No, the durian rider guy. That's
okay, durian rider 30 bananas a day. Yeah, he could cure his Crohn's and schizophrenia like Durian Rider claims he did.
Banana Phase Springs Eternal is what.
You sent him our way, huh? You told him.
I told him check out Primal Edge Health. Look at the carnivore diet. So we actually got on the subject of diet. I got to plug you, dog.
Dude, I'm honored that you would send some folks my way. I know you've been kind of messing around with a little bit of carnivory. I know you've, like myself, had a history of gut issues. I think so many of us in the millennial.
Well, I have a nice little where is it? A nice little cookbook here. Where'd it go? I've got your cookbook, dog.
You didn't frame it and put it on the wall?
Let me get it. It's here somewhere.
It's framed up on Jay's
I guess
wall.
I already threw it away. Shit, I don't know.
Oh, snap, dog. Look at all these people. We got 157 people here now. They're trickling into the chat.
I want to promote your book.
Jay's got the book. Jay's got a copy. Yeah, it's just fascinating how many people deal with gut issues. I think a lot of artists and performers, people who travel a lot, inevitably end up dealing with gut issues with the shitty food. You end up eating pizza at all the gigs you go to. You're eating hot dogs. You're eating the shit food that they've got around, and you don't think about it until your health starts to fall apart. And
right. I told him that because he's like 29, 30, so I was like. It's like you're gonna be forced to deal with the, the issues as you get older. It's like I didn't care about it until I hit, 30, and I was like, all right, it's time to start making diet change. I didn't eat shitty, but I wasn't eating optimally. So
Yeah,
when
very
you start
few of
having
us.
gut issues is when you will.
Very
But
few of us
yes,
even
I
think
did
about
get
it.
this, and I've looked through it, and we've talked about different.
There we go. There we go. Jay's got a copy of the
I think you
book. I
did
got a
really
copy
good
of
work.
Jay's
I was
book.
impressed.
Yeah, Jessica really worked hard on it. It took her a while to put that together. It was her third book, and yeah, I'm pretty stoked about it. I think she did a really, really good job. She's pretty happy with it as well.
I mean, the time to paint all these images of this food is crazy.
Yeah, no, those
Did
are
she
all.
paint the pictures?
I actually did all the oil paintings. They're all oil paintings, and I did all of them. They're uncredited.
Giant. They're like the size of a wall. It's a mural size.
We actually, yeah, we rented out a warehouse here in Ecuador. We rescued a warehouse. Actually, we liberated it, and it was formerly a factory farm pig installation, and we turned it into our art installation. So it's just oil paintings all over the walls of these pictures from the book.
I didn't know. Like, what are these pink donuts though? These look. How are these pink donuts?
Oh, those are shrimp. Those are shrimp, my friend.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
yes, not pink donuts.
Okay.
But you could actually.
I had a good idea for a stream that we could do.
Yeah, what's that?
Have you ever looked at modern art?
Yeah,
You know how awful it is.
yeah, like Jackson
Dude,
Pollock
we could talk about like who was behind modern art, and then what we could do is just go through and rate all of this crazy garbage modern art because there's just infinite varieties of it. It would be funny. I don't know. You might not want to do that. But
if you do it as Terrence McKenna and I can do it as Osho, and
Okay.
we can I can do it in character as Osho. You could be Terrence McKenna, and we can rate modern art. I'm down for it, man. I'm down. No, I'm always
all
down.
you got to do to be Osho, all you got to do to be Osho is put on a 1950s like a sci-fi, like just go to a costume store and rent like an old sci-fi outfit.
Yes.
You know, those like sci-fi outfits he would wear in like a
Yeah, and
whatever,
you go to
turban or some shit.
you get the Dune you go to the Dune costume closet from David Lynch's Dune and don any of the outfits from that film, and you must talk
You would
like
look like
this.
an Osho call, right?
You must talk very slowly if you're going to do the Osho voice, and you say every once in a while you say fuck or pussy, or you make references to Western modern art and pop culture, and you talk about how to be degenerate pervert, and you'll be good Osho.
They took the stones from here. Exactly.
We got a bunch of people in the chat now. So
Did you hear the boiler room where we were talking about Kumare? Because the Kumare guy basically did the same thing as Osho.
You
except
reckon
he
it-
was doing it?
is that a film?
Yeah. It's a documentary about a guy who starts his own cult, and he just creates this character of a guru. And he tells you from the beginning that I'm going to do this as a psychological experiment to see how many people fall for guruism, how many people just go along with it, and what I can learn. It's just like a 3 or 4 year old Netflix documentary, but it's worth watching because of that point. It shows it's a lot of insight into human psychology and the kind of stuff that we're talking about. Because even though he was intentionally setting up a cult, you're going to notice the patterns of what you see in these people who are in the vegan stuff,
Yeah.
who are into the hardcore animal rights activism. It's the exact same psychology. It's cult-like. And then at the end of the film, I mean, I'm not spoiling because he tells you from the beginning of the movie that he's going to, at the end of the film, tell everybody that he's a fake cult leader. So what's funny is that throughout his mystical messages and lectures and ceremonies and meditations, he's constantly dropping these kind of like revelation of the method hints that it's fake.
Uh-huh.
Like his chief message is, you must understand that I am not real. I am a fake. I am not a real guru. And they're all like, whoa, only a true guru would say he's not the real guru. And then by the end, you know, when he reveals that, he's like, hey guys, I'm from New Jersey and I'm a filmmaker and it was an experiment. And by the way, I was telling you the whole time that it's fake.
Yeah, no, you got these guys. These cult leaders, they have a specific way of speaking. And they've always got a specific vocal thing. And even, you know, Dr. Gregory, you know, Dr. Gregor here. I've never really been a doctor, but I've never seen or treated a patient, but book of beans, legumes. They've got the specific, or Durian Rider. He's got his own little thing. They're all on the gear, mate. All on the gear. Like they've every single one of them. They've got their own specific. Or you got Sverige and his little carnivore cult over there. If you don't eat raw meat, you are retarded. You must listen to nature. So it's like every single one of these guys. They've got their own cute little voice. And speaking of which, I've got where'd it go? I've got this video pulled up, and this one just really got my blood boiling. So we were going to talk about social engineering in the 20th century and how veganism ties into that. And we've kind of talked on a lot of these subjects before, so I don't want to rehash a lot of the stuff that we've spoken about in previous streams, but it might be helpful for some of the audience to kind of give a little background on this stuff. So, there to go. No, that's not the one.
Yeah. We can definitely do a brief.
So Jay.
Recap.
Yeah. So Jay, film, television, music. I think anybody with half a brain understands that these are used for more than just entertainment, right? Even the advertisements you see, especially the advertisements you see in between these TV shows and in between segments, these are all leading us to have a certain worldview, to see the world in a certain way, and they are engineering us to be a certain type of consumer in kind of this consumer religion that we live in now. And so how does diet play into like bigger geopolitical picture? I mean, why would corporations, why would governments, why would corporations that run governments want to influence people to think about food in a certain way and to view diet culture through a specific lens?
Well, if you think about how the people who are in charge, the people who run things, if you try to think about it from their perspective, you can start to see the logic. I'm not saying it's good. I disagree with how they run things, but you can start to see the logic of how and why they do the things that we say they do, because they are doing that. And one of those things is to control culture. So you don't want, if you have the control of society as your goal, you don't want things to be chaotic. You don't want there to be elements of chance. You want to avoid chance as much as possible. You want to avoid.
Hey, everyone.
Hello?
Sorry, that was Earthling Ed interrupting us. I was cueing the video.
Yeah, no, so you just wanted to fuck me up with having these creeper weirdos interrupting me. You wanted to have the weirdos interrupt.
I'm trying to discredit Jay I'm trying to throw him off, just subtly throw him off over and over again, and eventually we can get
psyops test.
And eventually we can get like an emotional outburst or blow up. We can discredit him as being emotionally unstable. So go ahead, continue.
Why did you put me on here intentionally to have the psyop of? Yeah, actually, some people would do that. They would accuse you.
They would accuse, yeah. Well, in the realms of the people that you end up talking to a lot, we talk with a slightly less sophisticated opponent in the vegan world, and they just think they say that you're an anti-science zealot if you don't buy into their nonsense.
You're anti-science, mate.
You hate science. You don't like science.
The science just confirmed it. Abortion's good, mate. Confirmed by science.
Yeah, well, abortion's the most vegan thing you can do. That's a quote from Durian Rider.
Well, by the way, doesn't that show that veganism is not divorced from some form of objective ethics? I mean, in other words, it's grounded in ethics, but it's in their mind, the vegan's mind, it's so ethical. But guess what? It starts to spill out into these other things, doesn't it? It starts to affect the other aspects of our worldview. And suddenly, if you're a true vegan, you're going to do this. If you're it's the cult. Like, if you're the true, member of the cult, you're going to do this way. Yeah. And it just kind of builds up into this dogmatic system. Anyway, but so if you want to control culture, what I was getting at was just that you have to understand that food is crucial. It's one of the fundamental aspects of what culture is. That's kind of obvious to us, but we don't think about it from the vantage point of control. We don't think about, if you're running society or attempting to run society, you don't want things out of hand. You want to control as much as you can. So
Well, Kissinger made that. He had that quote. A
yes,
journalist from the '70s said that Kissinger claimed that if you control oil, you control nations. If you control food, you control the people.
energy. That's what I was going to talk about. If you think about, we know about global energy markets and movements that this exists, and if you think about food, it's another form of the transfer of energy. So you can control energy by controlling food. Food is a resource, it's part of culture. So it's fundamental to controlling society. And all of the big social engineers have, of course, always openly talked about this. So you may think that what I'm saying is conspiratorial or a little far-fetched, but actually when you read them, and that's what I do in my series, Globalism books, is that I look at the writings of these top social engineers, top people like Kissinger that you're talking about, Bertrand Russell. And, Bertrand Russell says that when he lists the things that are going to be controlled in the coming technocracy of the future, the first thing he says is diet. Mm-hmm. He says that comes before any of the other things. So that's why what you're talking about is so important, so crucial, and you're on the head of a new trend of people trying to figure out, wait a minute, we've been lied to about this ridiculous, post-Carter era food pyramid of grains and shit at the top, which is preposterous, and people are starting to figure this out. So that's why diet matters so much, is that from the social engineer's vantage point, it's the central first starting point of how you control energy and resources.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you can control the breeding of populations through food as well. I mean, a lot of the people that got into the control of the food supply, I mean, just one group, for instance, a lot of people are familiar with the Rockefeller Foundation, kind of the Rockefeller fortune, and the 5 Rockefeller boys, the sons of John D. Rockefeller, they were given this foundation and this massive fortune, and as a form of generational wealth, and they were obsessed with the eugenics movement in the early 20th century. So actually, when I was in the university, studied the early eugenics movement, how Western influences actually created the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute in Germany, and then demonized the Nazis for supposedly being this terrible, awful people. But the Western power block, the Atlanticist power block through the U.S., through like the Rockefeller Foundations, Cold Springs Harbor, the Carnegie Endowment, these people actually funded the early eugenics movement and were collecting data, much like the Germans were, and actually funded the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute. So you see a lot of the same interests getting involved in the control of food and resources in the mid 20th century, and especially in the later years of the 20th century with the gene revolution, the GMO revolution, which was basically kickstarted with hundreds of millions of dollars of investment from the Rockefeller Foundation. So
it's crucial to understand the origins of that ideology. And in fact, eugenics goes way back to the Greeks. Plato talked about the eugenios, which would be the racial health, right? Racial hygiene. And in a sense, there's nothing wrong with wanting to preserve. I mean, if you choose an attractive, intelligent mate, in a sense, you're participating in eugenics, in the sense that you want to have healthy children. But there's another sense to which, even in Plato, it was present, that this is a dangerous ideology for the purpose of control, because what the state then wants to do is the state wants to exalt itself to a godlike status and try to control breeding. Mm-hmm. So it goes all the way back to Plato, and even prior to Plato. And you can even find it in Aristotle. Aristotle had the same ideas about well-bred, noble people relating directly to eugenics. And Plato, even, as we talked about, even had the idea of disgenics. He even had the idea of just feeding the workers, basically slave slop, orphans' porridge. Please, sir, could I have some more porridge? This kind of just garbage filth that an orphan would get. That idea is there to keep the workers weak, which is kind of counterproductive if you're living in a society where you have workers that you want to be healthy. But anyway, that's during the capitalist phase of things.
we even see this going on in the 20th century as well. Lord Birkenhead, this article.
Yes, so I was going to fast forward up to Birkenhead, because you hipped me to him. But you have to understand the time of Malthus. So when Darwin came on the scene, and right before Darwin, you had, during this Victorian period, the prevalent Thomas Malthus, who was actually an Anglican prelate, ironically, but
Hey Jay, before we get into Malthus is fascinating. I want to get into this deep. You mind refresh your window because we're getting popping from your side.
Oh, okay.
All right. Yeah, I was hearing the popping too, guys. Let's get rid of the pops. All right.
What's popping? What's popping?
So we're still. Let's see. Let's see if we get weird static anymore. All right, so keep going. So Malthus, who was Malthus, and what does he have to do with eugenics and this whole social engineering thing that we're seeing now with all the population control talk, depopulation speak, and all this?
Yeah, so basically it's the same upper class of European elites that had this idea of controlling the population, and they adopted it from the Greeks and from the Renaissance. And you can even trace the slave trade and human trafficking through this kind of ideology of kind of arbitrary classification of people groups in European history. Again, going back to the Greeks, because the Renaissance, they borrowed a lot of ideas from the Greeks, obviously. So that same idea in the European Renaissance carries into, I'm not saying everything about the Renaissance is bad, but I'm saying this idea is present. It carries into the elite of Europe, adopting this hermetic ideology from Plato's Republic and other documents to try to erect a technocratic, quantified, controlled society. It's the idea of the ideal republic. And so really, if you understand Plato's Republic, you understand the whole purpose of global government and the technocracy. It really centers around that and comes from that. Point being, Malthus is in that tradition. Thomas Malthus says, if we don't curb population, there's going to be a complete loss of resources. There's not going to be enough food for everybody. Yep. Fast forward to today, that's exactly what Ocasio-Cortez and this whole green agenda says. They say the exact same things every 10 years. If we don't do X, Y, Z, we're all going to die. It's all going to be the hole in the ozone. It's going to be we're all going to get burnt by the UV rays. We're all going to be through climate change. We're all going to get cooked. It's all complete nonsense, and it's all just rehashed Malthusianism. It's the exact same idea, and really it relates to an elite perspective on the only way to advance humanity is to try to breed the best of humanity. And to do that, it requires a massive reduction in population in their perspective. That's what you have to understand is the bottom line across the board for every single major globalist figure, all the way back to that Malthusian Victorian era. And it's intimately tied to Darwinism, because the perspective, I just did 2 talks on Julian Huxley, Aldous' brother, who coined the term transhumanism. He's the guy who came up with UNESCO. And Julian says it's all about technocracy, transhumanism, depopulation, and evolution.
Yeah.
And it's a religion. And diet is the way, the means. It's one of the avenues by which they see a way to socially engineer and depopulate. And what you are talking about and what we're talking about right now is calling that out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't look into it from this angle. A lot of people are just like, oh, what am I going to eat? What feels good to eat? And coming at it from
it's
a purely
just food, man. Yeah. What does it even fucking matter? It's food, dude. Like, like your character. Like, I think of that kind of guy, like the DMT dude.
Dude, but have you done DMT in Red Malthus, bro?
You said you were at some taco shop. That part cracked me up. You're like, I was down at like the taco shop, Taco Thursday, like whatever. And I was just
Filiberto's, dude.
Stone, dude.
Getting some fucking burritos from Filiberto's. And chick was like, dude, you look so high. I was like,
you're so red, dude.
I was like, fuck you, lady. Just give me my fucking burrito. Let me go.
I was like, fuck you, man. I'm about to do DMT, dude. I'm about to blast off.
Dude, this is what's sad. Like, my favorite videos, the ones I spent so much time and energy on, those get no views. People want the goofy shit that I don't even care about. But yeah, it's all good. That's one of my favorite videos. So you guys gotta check out my DMT trip report video. There, it was a fun video. Some people didn't think that was actually satire. Some people thought it was real.
No, I got a lot. Yeah, on mine, I got a lot of people thinking it was real.
Like, this is so real. And then some people were offended. Like, why are you making, like, you're such a dick, dude. You just never done it. Like, obviously you don't know what you're talking about, man.
I got
dude.
all the I just got a comment yesterday on that video, and some guy said, people only mock what they don't understand and are afraid of doing.
It's like, yeah, it's like, I was hanging around these types of people for years, man. I couldn't even count how many times I'd done DMT in my early 20s and late teens. So, I mean, these I obviously knew where it was coming from. Anybody who's been around that scene could see that there was a lot of of experiential knowledge in that video. But yeah, it's funny, man. People were tripping on that one, literally tripping on that one. Oh, but you're right. Like a lot of people, they don't see it at that level. They're just looking at it as pure, kind of in a hedonistic way, right? Or some people are just trying to get their health back, and they don't really have the faculties to even be thinking deeper about these issues. But I think, I don't know. I mean, people like you and I have probably been looking at this for a long time. This type of stuff. I was trying to study this type of stuff when I was a kid, trying to figure out how propaganda works. I'd see certain threads of how things are presented in television and in media. And it always fascinated me, and it always seemed like just the most powerful tool that you could ever use to control societies. And I was always fascinated. How did they mobilize, these people to go to these massive world wars? And how was World War I started? World War II? How do you get these people to kill each other in the name of ridiculous ideals that they end up dropping 5 years down the line anyways? And I was always trying to get the bigger picture of what was going on, and I think it takes years of study, and it's so easy for people to brush off some stuff that, I know you, like me in the university, you were looking at these things as well, and you've gone through some years of deep study with this stuff. So yeah, guys, I highly recommend you check out Jay's website, jaysanalysis.com.
Well, another great example of a figure that we forget is another one of the Royal Society luminaries, Charles Galton Darwin. So he's actually related to the Galton family, Sir Francis Galton, who was a famous eugenicist.
Yeah.
I've read his books as well. And he's so the Darwins and the Galtons intermarried. You have Charles Galton Darwin. And he wrote a book called The Next Million Years. And it's not very long, but I highly recommend it because if you looked at the talks that I did, for example, about, H.G. Wells's books, we covered multiple H.G. Wells books, such as The New World Order. Hello, openly explained for you in this. Galton Darwin is very similar and was also very influential to H.G. Wells. I mean, in other words, he was very influential in that circle. And even though he's not as well known as H.G. Wells, his book is exactly the same as what you see in H.G. Wells. And he talks about, if you look at humanity in a million years, here's how we're going to put forth the program to jump kick evolution so that we can create the technocratic utopia, or the closest thing to a technocratic utopia in a million years. What are we? I mean, he's not saying that it will be a million years.
Yeah, he says like, it's a very grand. I had that book somewhere. It's back behind me somewhere. But
and he talks about diet. That was the key thing to keep in mind.
Exactly.
There's several sections where he says diet. Exact same thing that Bertrand Russell said about. Remember what Bertrand Russell says? I think it's in Impact of Science on Society. No, it's Scientific Outlook. He says
Scientific Outlook's the better one of Bertrand Russell's. I would recommend that one over the Impact of Science on Society.
Yeah, he says we'll give you. He says the elite will eat steaks, and we'll give you the synthetic meat. That's pretty crazy.
Only the very rich will have real meat. Yes. He said everyone else can eat synthetic slop. And we're still getting popping. Have you experienced this popping sound issue before in your thing? Do you think it's a gain on your mic?
I can try. Let me turn that down.
It could be that. It's just consistent popping sound.
How's this?
That's a little bit too low now. Maybe turn it back up. I mean, it's not so bad. That sounds better. Everyone can hear what you're saying. It's just here. I can turn your volume up.
Yeah, I can hear the popping. I don't know what's causing it.
Yeah, it's strange. Let me see if
try moving the mic away further back. Is that bad? Can you still hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
It's popping when you talk. Is it popping when I talk?
Let me change my mic settings in Google Hangouts.
Pop, lock, and drop it. Pop, lock, and drop it.
I think that's better right there.
Okay. Maybe I had it too close to me or something.
Well, I had it so we could watch videos and it would play the audio through to you as well. But it's just always a pain in the ass to get this audio stuff working right. You know what's been working? What I'm going to use from now on is Discord works really well for voice. For voice and video chat. It works a little bit better. I know you got Discord. So maybe next time we'll do Discord. So I think the sound's better now, guys. So yeah, Bertrand Russell talks about that. Lord Birkenhead, that article is really important. Hey, we got a We've got a super chat here. Let's read the super chat. Christos Anesti, I love you. I love your work, guys. Might sound dumb, but could you do an analysis of iPet Goat 2? The symbols seem oddly complex. P.S. Jay, please unblock me. I want to send you super chats too. He's trying to.
I'm doing the Tristan method of blocking people so that then they get triggered and then they want to send me money. That's the Tristan racket he invented.
We talked about this on Boiler Room because people were super chatting Jay asking if I could unblock them. So I told him I'm going to go through the list. I'm going to block everybody, so they have to send Jay money to get unblocked on my channel. So yeah, I guess what's his name?
Tell that guy to tweet me because I will never be able to find his what his handle is.
All right. So yeah, iPet Goat 2. That's an interesting video, but I mean,
yes,
it's too much to do like a single analysis on because there's so much.
Yeah, I meant to do it, and then I got busy and had a really difficult week last week, and but I wanted to cover it in relationship to the Notre Dame fire. I don't think that it's predicting the Notre Dame fire. It could be. I mean, I'm not saying it's not within the realm of possibility, but I did a Notre Dame fire video that did pretty good. So that's my take on Notre Dame. But I do think iPet Goat is worth an analysis because it is a symbolic, allegorical picture imagery of. It kind of has a zeitgeist feel to me. Like I feel like I'm watching something from Peter Joseph, like a zeitgeist level video. I mean, have you seen it?
Yeah, 4 years ago, 5 years ago when it was first out, it just to me it seemed like there's a lot of stuff in it. It's probably made by somebody who's really into Freemasonry. I mean there's a lot of symbolism there. The intention.
And it does have some true elements like, Bin Laden character's fake. He's, pictured as a CIA stooge and this guy. So it has these elements of truth, like Zeitgeist did. Yeah. But then it comes away with this kind of like New Age Jesus. I mean, Christ consciousness.
Yeah, no, the end of it was like this hermetic kind of Freemasonic philosophy that it really was pushing. Brett, $5. Thanks for the super chat, my friend. Says, thanks, guys. Good stuff, fellas. So you're blocked, dude. I'm going to ban you. I don't know about that. Fellas? Okay, fine. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about.
By the way, I meant to say too about Kaiser Wilhelm. A lot of people think that eugenics is this Hitlerian idea. I'm just speaking of modern eugenics. Obviously, it goes back to Plato, but I didn't know until I think 10 years ago I was reading about Kaiser Wilhelm. Germany had already adopted the eugenics ideas prior to Hitler.
Yeah,
and Kaiser Wilhelm was a big time proponent of eugenics. Even to the point of wanting to sterilize various members of society that he didn't deem fit, so forth. So,
the U.S. was doing that. The U.S. actually did sterilize the unfit, and
that's why it's called the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, because he was already before Hitler was very into eugenics. Again, a lot of the Victorian British ideas. I mean, the Royal Society was a master of propagandizing the whole world with Darwinism and Scientism. That's the essence of the Royal Society's, what they have put out ever since Darwin. And if you read about the origin of the Royal Society, their whole thing was pragmatic scientism. So if you wonder why the world is fixated by Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye, these clowns, who I assume they're probably, are they promoting veganism? I assume they will. If they're not.
Oh no, I don't think so. But I mean, they promote the entire ideology surrounding it. Global warming, climate is changing. Yeah. We've got to stop climate change by doing whatever DARPA says we should do, and that's how we're going to save the world.
Examples of this scientism that originates in the Royal Society. That's the whole essence of the Royal Society. By the way, I'll bet you that one of these clowns, the big pop sci clowns, Dawkins, Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse Tyson, I bet you they're going to promote veganism.
Watch. Oh yeah. Oh, of course. One of these guys, I'm sure, is going to come out at some point. We got Jay-Z and Beyonce. I think it might be over there. I'm trying to get Jessica to find the next million years. It's somewhere in that stack, I think. It's a small book. I had one version marked up and another it's not. It's fine if you can't find it. But yeah, Charles Galton Darwin, he's a fascinating character because he's actually he's a results. Well, that's Scientific Outlook. That's a good one. There's good quotes in here. This is a good. We were talking about this book, The Scientific Outlook by Bertrand Russell, that Jay was recommended. And then also The Next Million Years. This is a really good one to read, from Charles Galton Darwin. This is an old print of it. I think it's from the 50s. Pretty fascinating book.
Isn't it funny too how fantastical it is? That's kind of one of the things I noticed, because lately I've been reading Julian, and like it's they have this mythology. That's why they love science fiction. That's why H.G. Wells was so into science fiction, was that he saw that his role would be to put into people's minds the possibilities of this scientific future. That, oh, if we would just adopt this, all of your dreams are going to come true. You're going to be living in Star Trek. It's going to be like Star Trek. You can have a holodeck where you can have virtual sex, all, you know, in your holodeck. It's going to be Star Trek. You know what I mean? They understood the role of imagination and giving people a new mythology, and that's what's so key. So the irony being that this is not science. It's not scientific. It's science fiction. That's what these guys are masters in.
Yeah, no, they're projecting a million years into the future and calling it science. You know, it's pretty insane. No, projecting a million years into the past with loads of faulty presuppositions and you know, and loads of assumptions like uniformitarianism, which everybody seems to take as just, you know, this ultimate principle. Obvious, yeah. It's just so obvious, you know, uniformitarianism. But it's pretty crazy. There's another super chat from Aristozenos. Good name, Aristozenos. $10. Thanks for the donation, man. Keeping the chat going, keeping the show afloat. Says, what is your opinion on adding fresh herbs/spices to a carnivorous diet? I also am in the process of becoming Orthodox, but I have celiac and I'm concerned about communion. Any suggestions? So for the first part of the question, I'll answer, hey, man, if you do fine with herbs and spices, do it. If you got celiac, you obviously shouldn't include much gluten in the diet, but you know, I don't know anybody who has issues with communion. It's a very different thing going on there. But as far as you know, fresh herbs, spices, if you can handle them, do it. There's no dogma about diet, right? It's just like, if you can't eat something without reacting, do you really want to be eating it, right? If you're feeling shitty, if you eat the soy, no reason for adding it back in. But if you like the herbs and spices, if it's not sending you to the toilet for 12 daily dozen bowel movements like Dr. Greger's diet, you'll be okay. And so yeah, Jay, he says in the process of becoming Orthodox, he's got celiac, but is concerned about communion because he, you know, obviously he's allergic to wheat.
I more or less had a rough something akin to that. So, and one of my good friends has celiac, so I totally understand it. I would say that I don't know your case, but in my case, you know, what you get in communion is, in the Orthodox Church, it's a little spoon, you know, with the bread and the wine. So it's a very, very small amount of bread. I don't eat the bread afterwards, which is not the communion bread, but just blessed bread, which everybody in the church usually shares. So I tend to not eat the best blessed bread, but I think that maybe if there was a situation like, you know, where maybe you had some extreme reaction or something like that, it would be possible to, you know, talk to the priest, and, you know, you might just receive wine in the communion, you know, and that might be a possibility for you, but that would be a decision that that your local church would have to make. But you know, and at the end of the day, you know, if it's something severe, obviously, you know, you're not going to be expected to do something that would hurt you. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think if you can make it clear, you know, to people in the church what your issue is, it's, you know, it's not a cult, it's not crazy. You're not going to be expected to do impossible things. But I would like to add too that it just from the outset, and I covered the last talk I did on Julian was his book on the UN. Mm-hmm. And if you doubt anything I'm saying, this little book on the philosophy of the UN by Julian Huxley, it essentially says everything that Tristan's talking about. It says what I've been talking about, that culture, food is a part of culture, and diet has to be controlled just like everything else. And why would that be? Well, in his book on Living in a Revolution, by which he means the final revolution, which is the technocratic transhumanist revolution, he starts the whole book by saying what matters is eugenics. This is page 11, preface, introductory, page 11. He says what matters is eugenics, and that evolution is a totality worldview. Evolution is a totality worldview. It is the most fundamental presupposition, in other words. And if it is the fundamental presupposition, then it, in his system and in their system, and these are the people that made the modern world. This is what you have to understand. This is who made the modern world. These aren't just nobodies.
I've got UNESCO's Twitter.
Start,
can you hear me,
then
Jay?
it logically follows that they think they can steer and commandeer evolution. And the way to do that is to experiment on humans. There's a good book that deals with this by a woman named Rebecca Lemov, where it's called, and she's not a conspiracy theorist, she's just an academic, but she wrote a book called World as a Laboratory. And she talks about different aspects of the 20th century, for example, being areas where they could do large-scale experiments. I don't necessarily mean that, they were like injecting everybody's food with something to try to grow them into Frankensteins. I'm saying they could have been doing that probably, but I mean, if you think about Tuskegee, that's an example, but you could also look at something like the Soviet experience, the Bolsheviks. Bertrand Russell says that was an experiment in Russia to see how it worked. You could look at American capitalism as a version of experiment. So if you look at the world from that perspective, then you start to understand that, China is not just something that popped up organically. China is a thing that this same people, this Royal Society, these Royal Institute for International Affairs, OSS, CIA, CFR, they set up modern China, and they talk about it and brag about it.
Can you hear me, Jay?
So it's not like I'm not going to keep going. I'm going to shut up. But, I was looking at the Peterson Zizek debate, which, it came out a few days ago. I think already 2-3 million people have watched it, which is pretty crazy. So a lot of people were talking about this debate, and they both got to talking about China as if this was supposed to prove something for either capitalism or communism. It was unclear what the point of talking about China was from Zizek's side. But I think he was trying to say that it was a successful state that was communistic, but also capitalistic at the same time.
Can you hear me now?
The point is that,
can you hear me, Jay?
Setting that aside, they overlooked the fact of large-scale social engineering, and that modern China was set up by the same elites the same group that we're talking about here that birthed the UN and UNESCO.
Is my audio coming through to you? I'm trying to fix my audio.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm trying to fix this. Let's see. Now can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think I've made an audio fix to where we'll be able to watch videos and comment on them. But if not, I mean, we've got so much. We've got our books to point at. We can thump our books a bit, and we could talk about this for hours, because what you said, I was flipping through the Scientific Outlook, and I don't know where the page is marked somewhere, but he's got a chapter where he actually does talk about how the Soviet Union is an experiment that he endorses. So Bertrand Russell, supposedly, they call him one of the greatest logicians in the world.
He's a great liberal.
He's one of these amazing logician, and just one of the most fantastic men to ever have lived. If you read his book, he's basically the musings of a genocidal psychopathic maniac. And but he does talk about how the Soviet Union's this beautiful experiment, and we're going to see how it goes. And exactly like you said, capitalism is an experiment, he says. And I've got UNESCO's Twitter pulled up. You see that right there, probably as well, Jay. Mm-hmm. So I mean, just like the third post, music unites the world. That's why we celebrate International Jazz Day. So it's like, this is not just, the UN is trying to make the world a better place. A lot of these people, Ella Fitzgerald, that's interesting too. A lot of these people, they do the useful idiots at the ground level, a better world, that they're going to stop suffering. Reconnection successful. Okay. OBS was disconnecting, and I don't know what happened. Sorry, guys. But anyway, so that's why you see the UN, UNESCO, which was started by Julian Huxley, who was a member of the Royal Society, who was in cahoots with guys like Bertrand Russell, would have been hanging out with guys like Lord Birkenhead, who also wrote about using diet as both eugenics and disgenics, mostly disgenics. He talks about breeding a nation of industrialist dullards, and he said, how could any ruling elite resist using ectogenetic birth and the control of breeding in order to breed a bunch of idiots who would work for us? And he even made a cheeky British Royal Society joke. He said, who could resist breeding a nation of industrialist dullards and peppering it with a few thousand curiously irresponsible mural painters? So basically, we're going to breed you into a bunch of idiots, and we're going to give you Beyonce and Jay-Z to paint shitty murals for you and keep you busy. So they're all about world.
So crazy. I'm just so crazy in love right now.
Right, I mean, Jay-Z, who does rituals with Marina Abramovich, who's just another one of these sick, twisted individuals. So yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff about giving GMO seeds to Africa. You'll see from UNESCO and from the UN. A lot of spreading of culture, so-called culture, which basically means Mick culture. It means the Disney revolution. Going to start Disney heavy petting zoos all over the place.
One of the interesting things that Julian says in the philosophy of UNESCO is that interesting because for everybody to read, he didn't expect everybody would read this, and that's why he actually says in one section that globalism is most people at this stage. He wrote this in 1946. He says most people at this stage are not ready to hear the realities of eugenics. And he says that's okay because all we have to do is just dumb everybody down and it won't even matter. So who cares about like whether this is true or not, or whether people are ready to hear it? It's not even going to matter because we're going to so chemically lobotomize them that it won't matter.
Yeah, the next million years is a pretty interesting one too, because he talks about also the selective breeding of the population. He says, here's just a little quote that I highlighted. At every turn, the argument leads back to this question of the master breed. Nothing can be done in the way of changing man from a wild into a tame animal without first creating such a breed. But most people are entirely inconsistent in their ideas of what they want created. On the one hand, they feel like all the world's problems would be solved if only there were a wise and good man who would tell everybody what to do. But on the other hand, they bitterly resent themselves being told what to do. So, I mean, he basically starts musing about how can we do this. Imagine that through new discoveries in biology, say by suitably controlled doses of X-rays, it becomes possible to modify the genes of in any desired direction so that heritable changes can be produced in the qualities of some members of the human race. So, I mean, this pie in the sky talk about we're going to mutate human beings according to our will. And, I mean, they have through selective breeding figured out certain disgenics things, and, eugenics practices have been popular for a long time, but these people are literally talking about mutating two different races, a master race and a dumbed down slave race. And these aren't just kooks. I mean, this is Charles Galton Darwin. This is the grandson of Charles Darwin. This guy was raised around the Huxleys and raised around the Bertrand Russells and the Lord Birkenheads. And
on page 14, this kind of sums it up. If you've not read Genesis 10, I say read Genesis 10 because you see what the Tower of Babel is, and it's not accidental that the EU uses Babel as its symbol, because the UNESCO is also Babel. In fact, on page 14, he says that what the goal is to build Babel. So they even consciously kind of refer to these things. And then I didn't really talk about this in my video on the book, but my live stream, but I did notice that he makes this weird statement that we're all made of stars.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, bro.
And Crowley.
Right. Every man is a star. Is that what he says? Every man is a star. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Isn't that? Oh, that's so funny. I never realized Neil deGrasse Tyson. You're just
Crowleyan.
You're stardust. That's a Crowley quote, basically.
It is.
Oh shit.
Billions and billions I'm glad you noticed that because Daniel Spalding wrote an article for Soul of the East about how Lawrence Krauss and Neil deGrasse Tyson are echoing Crowley a couple of years. It's a really good essay at Soul of the East. I recommend. But yeah, he moves from Babel to saying we're all just made of stars, man. And then he says evolution is God. And he says the goal is not to destroy the population, but to tweak mankind to create the optimal population. So because they have that scientific, pragmatic worldview, you can see the logic of why they operate the way they do. It's about creating the fittest population. Logically, that leads to not fit in terms of exercise and bitches going to the gym and becoming buff. They're talking about fittest in the Darwinian sense, which actually means the priest class experimenting on the general population, them going into the future and being modified with transhumanism, and everyone else dying. That's what they mean.
Oh, just some nice light conversation. Oh shit. What's going on here? Damn it. All right. I'm trying to figure out this audio video. All right.
I can hear you now.
Now you can hear me. There's just so many. Every day it's different with this audio setup. So I've got UNESCO, one planet, one ecosystem, one solution equals us. Loss of biodiversity is the main focus happening now at UNESCO. So,
if you listen to the Zizek debate with Jordan Peterson, you will see that Zizek is basically, he does this all the debate because he's a cokehead, but he's also a globalist who talks about the ecology, that capitalism is ruining the planet, and that Jordan Peterson is cooperating with this destruction of the planet, and we must have globalism. We must have international, how do you say, organizations.
right. It's like I haven't seen the debate yet, but I'm gonna have to watch it just because of that. Just because of that impression, I want to watch it now.
Dude, I watched a lecture of him 2 years ago, and he was so sweaty and coked out that I couldn't even follow this joke. Like, he was trying to tell a joke about a woman cutting a man's balls off, and he was so, I mean, he has to be a cokehead. I don't know what, but he's just like, you got to see this guy, because that's not an exaggeration.
we got some more super chats here. We've got where to go. There's two back up here.
But the point being is that his counter argument to Peterson was globalism. Was international organizations saving the earth through ecology, what you're talking about. You know, that's all Zizek.
Because humans are so bad, you guys are destroying the planet. And the UNESCO has been going around doing this for years. The UN talking about biodiversity. They'll go into areas of Northern California where people have nice plots of land, where they've been growing certain gray area crops for generations and generations. They'll go in there and they'll say, you've got a endangered slug on your property. This slug needs to be protected. We are taking your land. They will take their land, and the generation later, there's a fucking strip mall on it, and they kick people off the land for this shit. So, this whole environmentalism thing. Obviously, we're not saying that we shouldn't protect certain things, and that some species shouldn't be protected. But it's out of control, and it gets used as an excuse for control. So, Vladiro for $5 Canadian. Thanks a lot, man. You sent a couple super chats today. Thank you. You're keeping the show afloat. By the way, have you guys heard of the Burning Sun sex scandal in Korea? Many Korean celebrities involved. Gross how they abused kids in so many circles. Jay, you heard about this Burning Sun scandal?
I did. I just got tweeted this a couple days ago, and I saw the tweets, but I didn't get a chance to read into it. But I'm not surprised, because really this is just a lot of the degeneracy at that level. It's typical, because that's how power structures compromise people and how they mess up people, especially for the future generations. So, it's a global thing, because the warfare, in my perspective, is spiritual. It's not just one human Illuminati everywhere that's running everything.
We just take out the Illuminati, dude. That's like the worst word ever is Illuminati, right? It's like if you wanna instantly discredit yourself, you start battling the Illuminati. What are the Illuminati doing? And the media even uses
Mark
this.
Dice here, going to talk to you about the Illuminati, Babylonian bimbos,
bubbling Babylonian bimbos, busting big beautiful books. All the alliteration, man. Mark Dice, is that guy still around? I haven't seen him in years.
Yeah, dude, he's like 1 million followers. He's blowed up.
Blowed the F up. I remember he used to do those man in the streets interviews and find people to say dumb things and just try to make everyone look like idiots. I'm not so into that approach. This guy says, Vladrio, last super chat. He says, final super chat for me. How do you balance a carnivorous diet with Orthodox fasting? Because I went almost vegan during Lent and my energy was down. You're gonna have to maybe talk to your local priest, talk to an elder of the church, and it's not like this Judaized thing where it's like this legalistic framework and everybody has to Jay, you know a lot more than I do. Go ahead, man.
No, I mean, we've had this issue, always comes up. I mean, you have to just talk to hopefully the local priest is woke to these issues. My priest is woke to keto diet and all that, so he was familiar with it. So we talked about that, and he knows that I had like gut issues and things like that. So most of the time, I mean, unless you're at some just place that happens to be really weird, and somebody's strange, and demands something odd, which I haven't heard of, but I guess that's possible anywhere. Yeah. If in that case, I would say just move to a different church, a different Orthodox church. But typically speaking, I mean, the point of fasting is not to like gain points or to gain merits, like in Roman Catholicism, the merits of the saints and all this craziness. The point of fasting is like what Jesus says about the Sabbath. If you think about the Sabbath, the day of rest, Jesus says the purpose of the Sabbath was made for man. He says the Sabbath was made for you, to help you so that you could rest and not have to labor 8 days a week, 7 days a week, whatever. And if you look at any ascetic practice in the church, fasting, giving up things, and self-control, the purpose of it is for your own health, not just physical health, but it's to help you attain self-control.
Right.
Because
and
we all
not idolizing
food,
not using food as a drug,
yes.
Not having attachments to worldly things. I mean, it's not about, even people can use fasting as this like drug almost too. Look at bulimia and anorexia, right? It's like these are literal fasting disorders where people are, obsessively doing this and to the detriment of themselves. So I think, people take so many things to extremes, and they get very dogmatic about things. And I've never heard of anyone having problems with their people on keto diets and stuff who, during Lent, it's like, they're not expected to spend 20 hours formulating a new diet that's not going to destroy their health. I don't think it's about that. So, all right.
By the way, FAP NATO, Zizek is not smarter than me, and I'm not saying that because I'm offended by the claim that, but he's not that smart. I hate to break it to you, but
I don't know, man. That impression made him seem pretty clever.
I don't think he's not that. I don't see why he's so. I think people like that he's a crazy, wild talker figure, and he says a lot of things that philosophers say and phrases and terms. But he that doesn't mean that you're a great philosopher just because you're a great performer and you say things that confuse low IQ audiences. That doesn't make you a great philosopher.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll leave that to when I'm going to post my video tonight, my analysis of that big debate, and I think you'll see that everything that I've called out, by the way, I'm not just trying to tout my shit, but everything that I've called out and criticized about Peterson comes up in the debate. Peterson kind of moves in a better direction, which is a good sign.
That's cool.
Early on. And then everything that Zizek says, I have said almost all those same things before. He talks about transhumanism as a danger, so I'll give him points for that. Zizek talked about the fact that NATO's operations cause a lot of the problems for Europe and migrants. We've talked about that at 21 Wire. Many of the on the left have. I'm not a leftist, but my point is just that a lot of what he calls Trump the postmodern president. I said that when Trump was elected. On Boiler Room back at the time, did a whole interview on Trump as postmodern president. So public intellectuals are allowed to be public intellectuals.
They play the safe game too. They play a safe game, right?
Yes.
Anybody who's promoting global governance as the way out is not an intelligent person, in my opinion. Has not studied history.
And by the way, I'm gonna give Jordan Peterson big credit, because when Zizek went into the depopulation thing and the eco crap, Peterson said that a lot of that is fear mongering and BS. So
nice. Props
to Jordan Peterson.
You know what? I've seen him actually go in a better direction lately, just on Twitter, some of the things. And but maybe I'm biased because he likes a carnivore diet as well, and maybe I'm biased just because he brought so much attention to it. And I do appreciate that he brought attention to it, because it takes balls to be a public figure like that. And just the world's so ridiculous now. To say you don't eat vegetables, it's like, oh, what? That's so crazy. So a lot of these people really, they freak out over Jordan Peterson not eating vegetables. So yeah, you got to give him some props for that. And I think as soon anybody who gets into diet nutrition and follows it down the line and ends up finding themselves on a carnivorous diet like that, first of all, you never would have thought you would have gotten there. Second of all, you start to question everything you've been told about food. You start to question everything you've been told about the sustainability and all this nonsense. So I really hope that he does go deeper and look deeper into these issues of the fake sustainability push by the UN.
Anybody touting Zizek has to be, come on, dude. Do you believe the overpopulation eco crap that he talks about? You believe in the UN nonsense?
You guys know where this overpopulation, you know the science behind overpopulation? Malthus put flies in a jar, and eventually the flies died because they had no more room in the jar. Therefore, we have to control the human population. People are bad, and you guys need to stop having babies. So yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. We got another super chat, Uplaton, from $5 Canadian. That might be his second one. I'm not sure. But anyways, yeah,
tell
thanks,
Christos Anesti, I'm sorry, real quick.
Yeah,
Could you tell Christos Anesti, that guy that wanted me to unban him, tell him to make a comment in the chat, because I got the chat here, and I'll unban him. Sorry, go ahead.
All right, the guy who wants to be yeah, well, he'll hear it too. I don't have to relay the message.
Okay, yeah, dude, chat, and I will unban you.
All right,
Mr. Dude.
This guy says you could both stream on D Live at the same time. They won't deboost you, and the currency they use protects you, and only gains in value. Love your work. Yeah, I downloaded that on my phone the other week when I saw that PewDiePie was doing it, and yeah, I'll have to look into it. Thank you for the donation.
Yeah, I did too.
Have you streamed on there yet?
Not yet. I think somebody was saying that I just haven't had time for it. I had a really bad week, but somebody was saying that the currency they're using on there, you can't convert it into dollars. What's the point of that currency? I don't know if that's true.
Well, you could trade for other crypto, I'm sure, and then get into dollars eventually.
Oh, okay.
I can buy DMT on the internet with some crypto, dude. Smoke some DMT.
Okay,
on
so is this Vladiro? Is that the guy who wants to be unblocked?
Yeah, I think so.
Is that the guy?
Uplaton for another Canadian $5. Thank you so much, man. You're really keeping the show afloat here. Thank you so much. The two best quality of information on the web, period. Everyone needs to make their way through both hosts' past videos in their entirety. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. Honored and appreciate it.
Damn, dude. If somebody made it through all 800 of my things, then...
Yeah, it's too much. Don't go back on mine. Just keep... I put out like 2-hour streams every day, man. So just watch the next stream and we'll be dropping bombs. All right. Reconnection successful. Are you guys getting glitches in this OBS? We got a $20 super chat from, where'd it go? Matthew Arndt. Two of my favorite guys. I love when you guys get together, split this up, and keep it up. Thanks. What's split this up? I don't know what split this up means, but maybe that's like a slang thing that the young kids are saying. Oh, split this up. He wants me to give you I gotta give Jay $10 now. Jessica, PayPal Jay $10. My co-pilot here next to me.
Yeah. Except that it should be what, 8, because Google's not going to let you have the whole 20.
Yeah, doesn't Google take like 30% or something?
Yep.
All right. So, all right, that's all the super chats. Wait, one more. GSP, George St. Pierre, up in the chat, says, great talk, guys. Thank you for $5 Canadian. Look at all our Canadian friends up there. You guys, instead of, yeah, that's really cool. We got a lot of Canadians up there. We appreciate it. Thank you. You're not giving donations for Justin Trudeau's next campaign. Instead, they're giving donations to the Primal Edge Health campaign tonight. So we appreciate it. And yeah, sorry you guys got to deal with what you got to deal with up there in Canada. So what were we talking about? We were talking about UNESCO, talking about...
Yeah, UNESCO, diversity, biodiversity, Malthusianism. It's amazing how many people still don't understand this. I mean, this is something that if you've learned about the New World Order and that frame of reference, that stuff, you kind of learn about this stuff first. But a lot of people in the diet world have no clue about this, and they think that the vegan stuff is disconnected from Malthusianism, and it's not. It absolutely is. And once you look at UNESCO and this kind of stuff, it becomes very clear why.
Yes. So we also see a big push in universities to push a lot of these UN propaganda things, and of course, overpopulation. When I was in the university and taking biology classes, it was very prevalent in there, and if you dared question it, these professors would get offended. But they had none of them were able to justify it. It was just all claims. I remember one guy saying, I questioned the overpopulation claim that he made in this biology course, and he says, well, if you don't believe it, I don't know what to say. Look at Easter Island. Look what happened on Easter Island. Which is, you know, it's also, I mean, it's absolute projection into the past.
Statues?
All sorts of assumptions. I get he was trying to go with the narrative that they ran out of food and that they all died because they were overpopulated, which is that's a theory that's not even proven. I mean, you're
I know, dude. Those giant statues were actually made of chocolate. They could have just eaten the chocolate heads, the big chocolate head. By the way, I wrote when I was in undergrad, I had a German professor who was a mega. She taught German, and she was a mega advocate of depopulation and all that. And she made us watch Inconvenient Truth by Al Gore. And dude, so listen, so I wrote a critique of the film, and it didn't, like, she bombed it, dude. She gave me a D just because I critiqued it. Now, I was the student in there that would have critiqued it, but of course, she bombed my paper, which probably wasn't that bad of a paper. I mean, it wasn't written in German. It was a German professor teaching German culture class, and so I critiqued Inconvenient Truth, and she gave me a D just because she was one of these cult members.
No, this is what it is, and I've had people email me their nutrition course questions. And one viewer emailed me the questions, and one of the questions was, "How can you reduce your carbon footprint and prevent, prevent global warming?" And it gave several options, and one of them was the plant-based diet, and that was the right answer according to this thing. And she said, "I didn't agree with it. And I knew it wasn't true, but I had to answer this anyways because this was a multiple choice quiz, and I knew I would be docked on my grade if I didn't toe the line with this stuff." So they're literally they're just brainwashing you with this nonsense, with these quizzes and really nailing it down to your head. I gotta literally never use the word literally again. I hate when other people use that, but I found myself using it a couple times today. So we got another super chat. Jimbo Jones for $20 says, "Jay, I've been around since 2015. Leave Boiler Room and start a weekly cast with PEH. Jay America in 20 years. Your thoughts?" This is you blaspheming the Boiler Room, dude. Hey, I'm on the Boiler Room too, man.
Yeah, dude. I'm not leaving Boiler Room.
It's all
Boiler
good.
Room is so alternate current radio is where my show is. My podcast is hosted, and we got a lot of great shows there.
Boiler Room's great.
I think we have fun. We have fun with the Boiler Room crew. We have a pattern. We've done 250, 60 episodes. So no, I'm not leaving Boiler Room.
And it's a great format. And plus, I'm in the Boiler Room. You want me to leave Boiler Room too? What do you want us to start? Like the anti-Boiler Room, like counter movement? What is this? Come on, man. Thanks for the super chat. But you trying to start that drama? We not no drama here. We love the Boiler Room. But yeah, maybe we will have to do a separate show where it's just Jay and I weekly, but not out of spite to our boys and our girl and the Boiler Room. So yeah, Boiler Room's good stuff. All right, so I've got a image pulled up here from the Twitter of UNESCO, and it's talking about discrimination in education guarantees the Convention Against Discrimination in Education guarantees training opportunities for teachers without discrimination, and they're talking about the right to education. So this was a big part of it too, worldwide global education standards, and that was the this has always been a utopian push, this global education system. Even the U.S., you had No Child Left Behind and all this really shitty, dumbed-down curriculum. And this is all part of this global system to create a uniform culture, to create a global Mick culture for the global Mick revolution in the Disney heavy petting zoo, where we all spend our time in VR. I don't know, engaging in heavy petting with Mickey and Minnie Mouse in weird twisted VR porn and shit like that.
Hi, Tristan. Hi, Tristan. Would you heavy pet me?
Put your pee in the poo-poo. So check this out, man. You're gonna like this. I think this should feed through to you. All right, voice meter output. Tell me if you can hear this. We are gonna watch.
I can see this guy. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
My name is Aviga Matoya. You killed my father.
He's Vegano Matoya. Vegano Matoya.
He looks like that guy from Princess Bride.
He does, but like on estrogen replacement.
My name is Aviga.
Yeah. He looks like him, but on estrogen replacement therapy.
We're all doing well.
Can you hear him?
An update video to say a few different things.
Yeah.
And the first thing is to say that I'm currently in the US. A couple of professors from Harvard University reached out to me and they asked if I wanted to be a guest lecturer to teach a class about animals as commodities at Harvard. And that's why I'm here, and I'm so excited to be here. It's such a wonderful opportunity, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity as well. But whilst I'm still on the East Coast, I'll be visiting a few different universities, including Rutgers, Yale, Cornell, Columbia, as well as more. So it's really just a wonderful thing for me to be able to do, and I'm so happy to be able to be here to do this and to talk to people at American college campuses. It's something I've wanted to do for a while. So that's really what I'm doing at the moment, which is incredibly exciting and something I'm very, very happy to be able to do. In other news, stuff at Unity Diner has been going really well. We have been open now.
So then he talks about his diner, which is an NGO. He started a non-profit diner. So all these they pick up on it, right? These people pick up on the model. You do the non-profit.
Yeah.
So this guy, who's probably got no more than a high school education, Earthling Ed, he acts so unassuming,
My
acts so
name
calm.
is a vegan. Montoya, you killed the earth. Prepare to die. You killed Mother Earth. Prepare to die.
Oh man, he looks like a gay conquistador had a baby with Charlie Brown and fed it nothing but soy its whole life.
He's a conquistador.
A conquistador. Man, so yeah, this guy's
He about to hit them Aztecs.
So yeah, how fascinating is this at these universities like Harvard, which I'm going to pull up a little bit of information, which I think you guys will find very interesting as well. Harvard is having Earthling Ed, who, if you guys don't know who Earthling Ed is, he is a vegan terrorist who likes to barge onto people's private property throughout the UK. He brings hundreds of activists on their private property, calls them murderers, demands that they release their animals to them, and basically invades and terrorizes family farms in the name of animal rights. So this guy's pushing for international animal rights legislation eventually, right? And
he's a cult leader, dude. He's got the Jesus look going on purpose.
Exactly. And
all the cult leaders, Father Yod. If you watch the Source Family cult documentary that we talked about a couple boiler rooms back, if you watch that documentary, and if you watch the Kumari documentary, even the guru, the fake guru Kumari, he looks like Jesus. Like they all, let's adopt the Jesus. Manson had the Jesus look.
Yeah.
And they do that on purpose.
I'm God and the devil. I'm God and the devil at the same time. Gotta get in for the animals and the water. People are bad. All these humans, man.
Have you? I had a video, but I took it down because it was a little too edgy with the stuff I was talking about. But back when one of the first kind of screen capture videos I tried to do, fooling around with, maybe 2 years ago, was about Manson, because I found these clips of Manson talking about the green agenda. Have you seen that?
Yes, he's a full-on green. That's what I was saying. He had a band called ATWA, Animals, Trees, Water, Air, was his band while in prison.
Oh, that's why the Process Church is into the animal rights stuff then.
Yes, and the Process Church started, so the Process Church of the Final Judgment, we were talking about this in text before, they started an animal sanctuary, a nonprofit animal sanctuary that's, I forget how many millions of dollars, it might have been upwards of $100 million, or $100 million, but it's just insane. But you know what's so interesting is Harvard, who's having Earthling Ed go and talk there, they've got very strong affiliations historically. First of all, with the GMO revolution and the Green Revolution, they basically pushed the Green Revolution and the GMO revolution through. Anybody who wants to learn more about that should read Seeds of Destruction by F. William Engdahl. I think I've got that book somewhere here. I don't know where it went. Seeds of Destruction. I don't have it. Seeds of Destruction, really good book by F. William Engdahl. And but the David Rockefeller Center for Latin American Studies is at Harvard University, where David Rockefeller has donated lots and lots of money over the years. So I would be very surprised if this wasn't the college that he actually went to speak at about animals as a commodity. So, resistance and repression 1 year on from Nicaragua's civil uprising. So this is the model that these NGOs use to push these agendas, to push these revolutions. I mean, look, Amazonia and Planetary Futures, a conference on climate change. So it's about the consolidation of resources. It's about the justification of global government, and of course Earthling Ed going and talking at Harvard. fascinating. He did a TED Talk recently as well.
I was going to say, somebody said he did a TED Talk, and I don't. You follow this clown troupe way closer than I do. That's your field, of course. But I'm just kind of amazed at how transparent. Partly it's because I've read a lot of these globalist books, so I know how they operate. I think I'm on the 28th globalism book now, by the way, in my series. So after 28 books by these guys, it's not like you can spot it right away. You know exactly how they work. And this guy is obviously chosen. He's being promoted at that university. Nobody's promoted at the university level unless you're absolutely 100% on board with all the plan.
Yeah. And this guy, not even university educated as far as I know. I have no idea what Earthling Ed's past history is. I mean, he's not, Joey Carbstrong was a violent criminal. James Aspie, he was a violent criminal. I almost said it again, literally. He was actually a violent criminal, went to prison. He was a drug dealer and criminal, and now he's promoting veganism because veganism saved his life after he came out of prison. And then this other guy, James Aspie, he's just like a, surfer stoner guy, and he is just gotta go vegan for like the animals. It'd just be like so chill if we were all vegan and just like stopped animal suffering, dude. All these guys, they're all out of the UK, and they roll around through these different UK countries, just completely unchecked by any governments, invading people's property, doing these street activist things, and people really believe that these are grassroots revolutions.
Exactly. That's the key thing, is not understanding. And in fact, Patrick just had an eco-activist type person who has, I forget her name, but he had a woman on this last week on his show, 21st Century Wire, Sunday Wire, who had woken up to the fact that the corporations are actually behind the green agenda. That kind of blew her away. Now, we know this. It's kind of obvious to us because we've studied this. But the point being is that these people that are, 20, 22, 24, they can't grasp that. They can't understand that, because they don't know how the world really works. But it's not communists and Marxists that are bringing this in. This is what fools a lot of the right wingers. The faux right gets duped into this. The QAnon boomer LARPer types, they think that commies and Marxists are bringing this in. They look at Ocasio-Cortez and they think that this is a radical Marxist communist. It's true that there's aspects of communism to Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie Sanders, but they're not the people that are bringing in this system that you and I are talking about. The global elite, global billionaires, global corporations, the Fortune 100. I mean, you're looking at Saudi billionaires, David Rockefeller class. They're not communists, dummies.
Check it out.
They're not Marxists.
Plant-based
Marxism
news
and communism don't exist anymore. That's a dead ideology. It's gone. It's morphed into other things, and there's aspects of similarity, but this fools all the goofy right-wingers.
Someone says the only TED Talk that matters is Sam Hyde's. That's the best TED Talk ever. Yeah, what is it? 2070, Future Shock 2070 or something?
Future Shock, yeah.
That's the best TED Talk. You guys got to look at 2070, the TED Talk 2070. That's one of the funniest.
Yeah, it's epic, legendary, no doubt.
Meta level. So yeah, I mean,
by the
plant-based
way,
news.
there's another talk that he did at a university to an art department. Have you seen that
The
one?
the one I sent you, where he's Jennifer Aniston.
That one. I had never seen that one. That one was epic too, dude.
That was so funny. That's like 2.5 hours with real bad audio, but it's
And you and I, because we've been in the college realm and seen how it is and that's how ridiculous, the undergraduate university system is. It's just so suffused with propaganda. It's so absurd.
Yeah, no, imagine high school, but slightly less dumb. That's the university system. Just a little bit less dumbed down than high school.
Right.
The top 30% of high schools really
And way more expensive.
Yeah.
It's a giant debt scam on top of it. Like, imagine high school with a giant debt scam.
Right. So we're looking at plant-based news co-owner Prince Khalid to open vegan restaurants in London and the Middle East.
Prince Walid's a Marxist. He's a
Khalid.
Marxist.
Right. These people, they really believe that this is a Marxist thing, but like you've talked about so many times. H.G. Wells says this in his book, The Open Conspiracy, that it's not Marxist, that the actual the driving force behind the global socialist revolution is capitalism, is what he says. He says monopoly capitalism is the same thing, and it gives the same ends.
Yes, exactly. That's really difficult for people to grasp. They just can't. Younger people can grasp it, like Zoomer age, which is interesting because you might think that they wouldn't, but millennials can get it. But people my age, and then especially the boomers cannot grasp that because they were so indoctrinated with Cold War. They find it very, very hard. And I understand it's very hard to understand, accept that, because on many levels, the Cold War did play out in a real way. There really were Russian spies, Soviet spies. There really were CIA operations that were going on. Yeah. But the key is that at that top level, and if you want to hear a factual basis for this, listen to the interview that I did with Mark Hacker, the Russia specialist, on Victor Rothschild's personal diaries, because he actually what he did was he translated a KGB colonel's diary from Russian about Victor Rothschild. And so there you have a high-level British intelligence person, again, in these same Royal Society circles, who was working directly with Soviets.
We got some boomerism going on in the chat, though, Jay. Monopoly capitalism is not capitalism, dude. That's not real capitalism, bro.
Yeah, I mean, this is the anarcho libertarian.
Dude, just getting some Bitcoin, man. You're just jealous because you didn't get as much Bitcoin as I did in 2011, man. If you did, you would understand that capitalism is how we're going to end this, bro. Bitcoin's going to save the world. You just watch.
What you have to understand is that if you look at the Zizek debate with Peterson, and again, I'm not trying to be unfair to Peterson because he did say some good things. It started out really goofy because he was arguing against the Communist Manifesto, which is not really relevant anymore. It is in a historical way, but that's not a guiding ideology for the globalists. The globalists are bringing it in through the Fortune 100. And I understand that von Mises, Austrian school people, don't think that monopoly capitalism is true capitalism, but that's the exact same thing that the commies say. The commies, who are their dialectical buddies, say, it's not true Marxism. That's the endless refrain of every ideologue. And the problem is that both of those systems, this is the key here. This is what the Huxleys and the people at the top say. Why do you think Aldous Huxley names the characters in his book, Brave New World, after Marx and after Ford? So you have Ford, the capitalists, and you have Bernard Marx, the character in the book, the Marxists, because they both lead to the same end goal. Now you said, but that's not true capitalism. What is true capitalism? I mean, on what basis do you delineate between the monopoly capitalists
free market,
and Rand?
Free market, man. Free market, dude. Free market.
Yeah, but the problem is that if let's say I'm John Galt, or if I'm the CEO, there's no moral, logical reason why I don't want to buy off government to control and shut down my opponents.
Nope, that's not capitalism. Then you're not a capitalist, dude.
I know. Why do I have to be committed to an abstract idea of capitalism if there's no objective morals? I don't. So fuck capitalism. I don't care. That's why David Rockefeller, who wrote his thesis on von Mises, he wrote his thesis under von Mises and studied medieval debt theory as the basis for his worldview. I'm not joking. That's in his memoirs. He did his so the monopoly capitalist does his dissertation under von Mises.
Yeah, because
it leads to that. There's no reason why John Galt can't be David Rockefeller and screw everybody else.
Yeah, no, there's nothing holding it back, and that's the argument. Right. For you guys, I'm not arguing for monopoly capitalism and all that stuff.
And when you say that doesn't mean that I want fascism, and that doesn't mean that I want communism, socialism. That's what every goofus thinks.
They think it's a fake dialectic.
He's a fucking communist.
That's the thing. It's a fake dialectic. Communism versus capitalism, fake dialectic. Communism is funded by monopoly capitalism, and like H.G. Wells says. Like H.G. Wells says, it's two wings of the same bird coming together to form this global system, which they believe is inevitable. But it's basically, it's the Tower of Babel type situation all over again.
It is, and this is if you want proof of this, watch the Peterson Zizek debate. There's the capitalist communist dialectic on display for everybody, proving everything I've said about this. And they even say it's a dialectical exchange, a dialectical debate. In the debate, they talk about dialectics. And I'm like, hello.
Well, people think that dialectics are a good thing sometimes. They think that, oh, it's natural. Everything is in this dialectical tension, and everything is, forming the synthesis out of the.
Exactly. That's why Zizek says there's an interesting. I'm glad you said that, because there's an interesting point in the debate where Peterson says, I thought I was dealing with a Marxist. He says, but a lot of what you're saying isn't Marxism. And Zizek replies by saying, no, I'm a Hegelian. And he says, if you understand Hegel, then you understand that the dialectic is all for the process of working history out to the synthesis, to the omega point, which is the global government. That's why they love dialectics. And in fact, he talks about dialectics and Hegel in here. I mean, you could look at Zizek as a continuation of Julian. They're kind of essentially the same type of character. Because Zizek says we need global democracy. We need an international organization to help global democracy come to, fruition. What in the hell is that? Nothing. That doesn't exist. That's nonsense. That's just propaganda, window dressing for the real plan that he says in here nobody can actually deal with. The public is too stupid to realize that everybody needs to die. So we have to dumb them down and do it anyway.
So somebody asked, $2. Kentucky is better. Send it $2. Thanks, man. It says, y'all fools got any info on Neom, the smart city? So yeah, Neom.
I did a video on it.
Yeah, Neom's very interesting. I was going to try to pull up the trailer for it, but it probably has copyrighted music, so I don't know if I should.
I have the trailer in my video.
Okay, so the trailer's... All right, check out Jay's video on Neom. $500 billion mega city, like this massive smart city. Basically, all these tech giants are going to start investing in this, and of course, it's in the the bastion, the country that is just a symbol of freedom and progress and evolution of society. I joking. It's in Saudi Arabia, home of Prince Khalid. So Prince Khalid, who owns plant-based news.
Your buddy Khalid.
Exactly. So Khalid will probably be involved in this at some point. Prince Khalid, whose father is this guy who I was just pulling up, the dwarf-throwing billionaire who's buying up America. Tales of the mysterious Saudi Prince Al-Walid. So this dude owns a yacht that was used in a Bond film as the Bond villain's yacht. I forget what film it was. Jay would probably know. Which one has a villain with a yacht?
And he owns a harem of dwarfs that he throws.
He tosses them for fun. He tosses midgets. And let's find the actual passage. But he's a high-profile philanthropist, an activist even. He donated millions to the 2004 tsunami in India. So he's just trying to help people out. But he takes a little bit of shit because he likes to toss dwarfs. So let's see if I can find the dwarf. Ali's chief spokesman explained the dwarfs this way: little people or dwarfs.
I talked about Game of Thrones, and I talked about how Game of Thrones matches up to reality, and people were like, "How does Game of Thrones match up to reality? What are you talking about?" Well, think about Tyrion Lannister, and the reality is that in the real world, the Saudi princes throw Tyrion Lannister around like a basketball.
They do mock him. They mock poor Tyrion. So he says, I never saw any of them being thrown, says one source. But then this other guy kind of explained it away. He says, little people, or dwarfs, as they are called by some, are often among disadvantaged individuals who come to ask for HRH Prince Al-Walid assistance as a philanthropist. You need to understand that in Saudi Arabia, people of small stature traditionally have been treated as outcasts and alienated in the society. They come to HRH Prince Al-Walid to ask for his help, since he's renowned for his generosity. He invites them to stay for whatever meal he is having together with people, asking for help, medical assistance, financial assistance, etc. Besides keeping dwarfs in his court as jesters, Al-Walid's insulation and wealth sometimes leads to other types of startling behavior. So yeah, he likes to drop the N-bomb every once in a while. And
so it's true that a Lannister always pays his debts because it's Prince Walid who's making the actual payments, right? I lost your audio.
Got to pay the Iron Bank, dog. But they know that we're watching. Check it out. 12 details you may have missed in season 8, episode 3, Game of Thrones. I'm trying to find. There's a part where they actually talk about him tossing the midgets. I don't know. They dance. They chase each other around. They do crazy things. Sometimes the play turns darker. One source who left Al-Walid's employ with a letter of recommendation from the prince says that at least once, Al-Walid set up a midget-tossing contest promising money to whoever could throw the little people the farthest.
Wow.
There were pillows. So he has Business Insider about the daddy of this philanthropist who's going to open vegan restaurants. Oh, how amazing, some vegan restaurants. Yeah, these are the people that are, investing in stuff like Neom. His KBW Ventures is also heavily invested in like Memphis Meats, which is lab-grown meat using like CRISPR type technology. So, of course, goes right back to the ectogenetic babies and the ectogenetic births that they talk about in the next million years, the scientific outlook, and everybody's favorite Lord Birkenhead, you fucking peasants, Lord Birkenhead. This is it's all going back to the same thing. So, yeah. Let's. What else? What else we got here?
Can you read the title? Because like when I see it on my screen, it's in reverse. What's the title of that article? The one that. Well, actually, I can't read any of them. But could you read the title?
If it's in reverse, sorry, man, I'll flip it.
Yeah, that's okay.
There we go. Now it's flipped. This article is just called "The Midget Tossing." Nothing.
Oh, okay.
The dwarf throwing billionaire who's buying up America. This guy owns like 6% of Twitter. Very, very influential man.
I can barely see that picture. Is that him? I thought
that's him, but this is the son. This is his son.
Okay, so it's his son. Okay,
his firstborn son,
like Robert Goulet. You know who that is?
Yeah.
Will
Ferrell used to do a really funny impression of him.
Right.
Back when Will Ferrell was funny. Yeah, so we had a lot of protests going on in Australia. People trying to shut down farms. Right? Here, we'll go back to him. There's funny.
So I have a question for you, Tristan.
Yeah. What's up, man?
So it looks like, dude, he looks just like Robert Goulet.
There's better pictures. I gotta find better pictures of him.
Dude.
There's pictures of him looking like a Bond villain. That's one of it. He would look. A source said that at one of the parties Al-Walid would throw in the desert, he threw $100 bills into the bonfire, encouraging the dwarfs to run into the raging fire and pull the money out.
Oh man! Wow. Is this why they like to hire the Instagram thoughts and poop on them too, just to see what they're willing to do?
Yeah.
You've heard of that story, right?
No, but I believe it. That's disgusting. What happened?
Well, just that some of these Saudi princes will find the Instagram thoughts, the hoes on Instagram, and then they'll be like, "Hey, you want to come to Saudi Arabia?" And then they go there and they find out that they're not just hoes. The prince is basically paying $10,000 to poop on them.
Wow,
I'm serious.
Wow. Well, they also don't Beyonce and some of these stars kind of get hoed out to these Saudi princes as well. I've seen some stuff about like them doing private shows.
I have heard, this has gone around for a long time. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
Private shows, right, for like millions of dollars.
I mean, yeah, if it was somebody at that level, it would be a lot of money for sure. But there was something I was going to ask you. Oh, so one thing I noticed that's kind of crazy that I thought would be coming is, are we going to start to see violence on the part of these radical vegans?
Yeah.
And is that what's starting to break out is violent action? Because these people are so indoctrinated that they think that, that they're not motivated by reason, they're motivated by passion and emotion, and they think that they're on this kind of crusade, this moralistic crusade where they have the high ground to do anything. And it's kind of just creating this sort of crazy mob mentality.
Well, let's take a look. This OBS Studio disconnected and then it reconnects for some reason. Very strange. This is what these. I mean, doesn't this look like they should have pussy hats and post birth abortions or a woman's right shirts on? I mean, this is them. I would say, yeah, man. I think. Unfortunately, I think it's what you're going to see is farmers fighting back. You're going to see these people coming onto people's private property, like in Australia, where these people are. Yeah. And you've had a lot of farmers talk about it.
Attack farms? I mean, is that what they're doing?
No, they're not going to attack it. What I think was going to happen is the farmers are going to end up injuring them. That's what's going to be sad. And then the farmers will get demonized. So I think
the media will say that the media will say that the farmers are rabid right-winger extremists who, are attacking the peaceful protesters, and the peaceful protesters will be the people that are like trying to steal people's livestock and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. The vegan protest completely broke a bunch of Australia's columnists. I don't know what this is about, but it's just there's a lot of positive press in Australia for these recent protests that they had. Vegan film Dominion viewed 55,000 times in 48 hours after Australian protests. So their protests were they blocked the streets and they wore shirts and they had signs that said, "Watch Dominion, mate. Watch Dominion. Help the animals, mate."
Oh, so this
It's a propaganda
display,
film. So plant-based news.
So they created the PR spectacle to promote the film.
Yep, exactly. So then you've got, some of these farmers are starting to talk about it. Now you've got plant-based news, of course, acting like this guy's terrible. This farmer brands vegan activists lawless, unprincipled, irritating extremists, which is exactly what they are. And they're trying to shut down slaughterhouses, shut down city centers, and even shut down farms. I had a great clip of these vegans coming onto this guy's farm. I don't know if it was this guy or somebody else, but he was an Australian farmer. And they scared the shit out of all these cows, and the cows start running around, stampeding around, trying to get away from these vegans who came onto his property. And the dogs are freaking out as well. And what happened was one of the cows even fell. Like one of these smaller cows actually fell, and looks like it might have gotten injured.
Well, but that you can justify that by the greater good, Tristan. I mean, yeah, if a cow has to die for the greater good of Cow Liberation Front, the Cow Liberation Army, the CLF.
So, I mean, if you want to know what's going to happen, sometimes just taking a look at the New York Times or some of these mainstream, they start to precede. So check it out. Protests in Australia pit vegans against farmers. Vegan protests across Australia have reignited debates about animal cruelty and sustainability, while raising questions about vigilante action. So they're setting up for the demonizing of people protecting their property, and they're also
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think this is going to definitely not be. It's not going to turn out good for the family farmer. That's for sure. Unless enough of us.
It makes me think too of. Do you remember 12 Monkeys?
Yeah, I haven't seen that movie in like 15 years though.
Go back and watch it because sometimes Terry Gilliam films are pretty prescient. But if you remember, the Brad Pitt character is a radical vegan animal rights activist.
So
and he
hot.
he has the Malthusian doctrine that to save the animals and to free them from the zoos and to stop people from eating animals and all this ethical mistreatment of animals, they need to release the bioweapon because his dad is a geneticist. And you think throughout the film that it's the dad who owns the corporation and the genetics lab that's behind it. And then, spoiler alert, I assume a lot of people have seen it. It's one of my favorite movies. 12 Monkeys is a phenomenal film with Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt. But when Brad Pitt's character, you find out that he's actually an insane vegan animal rights activist. I'm pretty sure he's vegan. If not, It's the same principle at work here, because so he sees himself as this revolutionary, and he releases this virus, and it ends up not being him. It ends up being somebody else. But point being is that it was Malthusians behind it, and they talk about how man is the cancer that has to die on the face of Gaia and all this crap.
Yeah.
Right. And
Humans bad.
And what I'm saying is that these people in these photo shoots and these photo ops that stage this spectacle to get attention, they look just like it's just like the Brad Pitt character. And so that movie is from the 90s. So that's very prescient. I mean, they were predicting, what was going to be the norm by these kind of radical activists in the future. And now we're seeing it. I think we're only going to continue to see this vegan stuff.
Yeah.
Activism everywhere. It's going to break out.
More like
At least
whacktivism.
that's what they want.
Yeah. No, it's pretty insane, and you see the New York Times is basically promoting these people.
Right. Exactly.
I have a Instagram post that I put up earlier of something that somebody said to me on Twitter. Someone sent me this tweet. Let's find this over here. Okay, here it is. Nemo, Babe, Dumbo, Bambi, 101 Dalmatians, Charlotte's Web, The Fox and the Hound, Ferdinand, Free Willy, Air Bud, Happy Feet, The Lion King, Wall-E, Brother Bear, Open Season. I was taught to love animals the entire time growing up. Why did it take so long to make the connection?
Yeah, you were being propagandized. In fact, I didn't realize that until I remember when Open Season came out. I was woke at that time, so I understood the basic plan of globalists and all that. So I knew about the UN and all that. And that's when I realized, wait a minute, this movie is actually about eating animals and killing animals as being evil, and hunters are all the bad guys. And yes, that was kind of the plot of Bambi after I watched Open Season, but it was at the point of Open Season where I realized this is a propaganda movie. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, that humans are bad, and in all these Disney movies, even the ones that aren't overtly about, an animal being hurt by a human, like Bambi, they're all anthropomorphized animals, right? The animals have hands, the animals have heads that move around, they speak, they have, opposable thumbs. Suddenly a bunny rabbit, Bugs Bunny, like has hands, and he walks around and slaps hands with people. It's this anthropomorphization of animals, but it's always about the protagonist being traumatized, right? Disassociating into this false world, this false reality where the animals protect them and sing to them. I wrote a little post. I said, yes, activists, you're taught to anthropomorphize animals and project your highly suggestible, manipulable emotions on them. You were programmed into a false Disney reality by these subversive cartoons where humans, parents, and families are sources of pain and torture, where talking, singing, dancing cartoon animals comfort the protagonist in a false dream world their fractured psyche retreats to in their trauma-induced dissociation states. You were fed processed, refined sugar junk kibble with Disney animals on the packaging. You were disconnected from your food supply, your family, your environment via a scientifically designed social engineering campaign that traumatized you into your self-refuting, self-destructive worldview and engineers you into a product of the culture, a tool of the spirit of the age that will beg for his own enslavement to the dehumanizing culture that programmed you into accepting and embracing this insanity. So yeah, that's and that's why I kind of titled this little stream what I titled it. Is because, it all ties in together. All these Disney films we all grew up on, Beauty and the Beast, where this woman falls in love with a beast and has a lovely bestiality relationship.
And exactly. That's a great point. And it's not just the movies. I have to give credit to Mark Rudolph, because I don't know if you remember him, but he was he was ahead of the time when it came to like the men's activism stuff. And
I'm not familiar with him. I'll have to look him up.
He does more like marketing stuff now, but like 10 years ago, he was way ahead of the game, because what he would do is analyze commercials on his blog from like a gender standpoint. And he started pointing out patterns in commercials about how men were typically the idiot, the woman ran the household, all that kind of stuff. And it clued me into also realizing that, remember how prevalent it's been in commercials to have people as animals. And I remember at the time, Geico and Scottrade, or one of those stupid trading sites. Do you remember how humans were constantly portrayed as either animals, babies, or cavemen? That's because that's how they view society. Yeah. You're a baby caveman animal. I mean, quite literally. And if you pay attention to commercials, you'll start to realize this, that they're actually, social engineering is not just in music videos and movies and sports venues. It's all over commercials as well.
Absolutely. It's so subversive in the commercials because there's so many different ads that you're seeing all the time, but then the overarching message that you're getting from all of them, you don't even consciously register it. That's the thing. It's below the conscious perception, and that's where the powerful propaganda is. It's not overtly what you think you're watching. It's these little presuppositions that get slipped in there, and they get stuck. They stick in your behind, and you don't even realize
Hunter
you got to
kill Bambi. Bad man Hunter.
Yeah. Look, and you're just like that little Bambi, right? Because everybody's had because the family's been broken up, right? The moms go to work, the dads go to work, so we've all got this kind of innate sense of disconnection from our mother already, because we get sent to daycares and preschools, and hang out with people who don't love you all day in the public school system, and your mother's gone working to just try and feed your family because they are told that it's it's freedom, and it's this beautiful, lovely society. So we all anthropomorphize and identify with little, Bambi and her dead mother, and we think that it's terrible to kill animals, and we need to just buy the Frosted Flakes with the cute cartoon. What is it like a what is that on Frosted Flakes? Tiger, Tony the Tiger. Tony the Tiger is your friend. Mowgli, the big bear in the Jungle Book is just your buddy. You can like sit on his belly, and the bear's just gonna smile at you. When in reality, animals are not humans. When you look in the eyes of a bear or one of these predatory animals, you see what you see when you look in the eyes of an absolutely dehumanized psychopath. You see cold, calculating cruelty that will eat you if it needs to. You don't see this innocent, loving, unconditionally loving creature like the vegans want you to think when you look at a bear. Yeah, maybe when you look at a deer or something, it's a little bit different. But anybody who's ever looked at a deer in the eyes, it's not human. This thing is not. We're very different from humans. I guess it all comes down to the presuppositions as well. What is man? What is man's place in reality? What is nature? And if you don't have and the vegans, they even try to somehow reconcile their own innate knowledge of the fall, right? They believe that, it's not natural that there's death. The animals shouldn't be dying. And to a certain extent, they're tapping into something that's true, because death is not natural, in my worldview, right? Like in the Orthodox Christian worldview, death is not natural. The fall is not natural. And it's, this is it's a weird thing. Jay, you want to restart your video? You're cutting out here on the video. Just disconnect video and reconnect. Oh, no. There we go. Now we're back. So, yeah, the anthropomorphization is crazy.
Yeah, and it makes me think, too, of Jungle Book. When I went, I was familiar. Obviously, I grew up with the Disney movie, and then I watched the recent CGI Disney version that came out last year. Okay. And the thing about Jungle Book was that I never noticed that there's a lot of layers going on to that, because it's Rudyard Kipling story, and Kipling was one of the elites of the British Empire. So he was actually writing these stories about British imperialism. Freemasonry is everywhere in that. He's, if I recall, isn't he Man Who Would Be King too? That's a Masonic movie. If you watch the Sean Connery, which everybody should watch, Man Who Would Be King. If you doubt the Masonic conspiracy aspect of the British Empire, watch The Man Who Would Be King. It's obvious in that movie. There's no question about it.
Or you read Manly P. Hall. Like, you just read that Manly P. Hall book, and you'll see so many connections to the culture too.
The reason I'm relating it to the British Empire, not just to like Pike or Manly P. Hall, but specifically the British lodges of the Masoners, because that's how the empire ran, and that's how the empire was able to disseminate propaganda throughout the reaches of the empire. This basically, the lodges function as kind of the spy nexus, propaganda, secret influencer hubs for England, for the Imperium. And so if you have that in mind, and then you go watch Jungle Book, what you realize is that Mowgli is taken out of his normal human habitat to be exposed to the natural order. And so in a way, it's kind of similar to like William Golding's Lord of the Flies. And so while Mowgli is out there, he's in touch with nature. He's in touch with Baloo, and then he encounters the king, the monarch. I forget the monkey's name, but what blew me away was the part where he sings the song. I can't remember how it goes. And like Dizzy Gillespie or one of the guys sings the song in the Disney version. Now I'm the king of the da 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 and the da 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 da. That song is about the magic and him stealing man's fire. So he wants the fire of the gods, which is the Prometheus story.
Yep.
And he can't steal it because he's a monkey. He's not as evolved. And so Mowgli outsmarts, because Mowgli has all this technical know-how, he outsmarts the king of the monkeys. But the point of that is that religion and superstition and kings, right? That's the old corrupt system that needs to be replaced by the system of being in harmony with nature and letting science and technology guide society. That's what that story is about. I never noticed that.
It's such a
I
strange
watched
conception too, because how do you define nature? What is? I mean, isn't it natural just for animals to rape, kill, and steal?
You would think, right? I mean, from that mindset, from the evolutionary mindset, that is what's natural. But I think what Kipling is trying to say is similar to the story of Man Who Would Be King. Is that, and I'm not going to spoiler alert, but in Man Who Would Be King, Sean Connery and his Masonic brothers happen upon this isolated society in the Himalayas, and they realize that at one time in ancient past, Alexander the Great had happened to come across this village. And the village had this idea that Alexander the Great would reincarnate at one point in the future. So they had this weird kind of prophecy. So what Sean Connery does is that he gets this idea, this trickery con man idea, that he can trick the village into thinking that he is the reincarnation of Alexander the Great because he has a gun. Like he's got this technology that seems magical to these village people. And so he tries to outsmart them. And I'm not going to spoil the movie, but it's worth watching because it shows that the Masonic mythology is about how to control cults and religions. That's why it's so important to the imperial rule, is because the rule of the empire is the same as a cult or a religion. And in fact, I just posted some of my old essays about Edmund Spenser's Fairy Queen. He wrote the mythological narrative for Elizabethan England. And he basically pictures it as a cult. He basically says, she's like the goddess, and you in the empire are under her tutelage. She's the god queen. It's this very bizarre mythology, but it's very hermetic, and he adopts all this hermetic imagery and all this stuff. Anyway, I'm sorry, this is a long rambling story, but what I'm saying is that in both Kipling stories, and if I'm wrong, I forgive me, but my mind is kind of mush, but isn't Man Who Would Be King, isn't that Rudyard Kipling?
I think so. Pretty
sure it is. But they're both Masonic tales with the same point, that technology and know-how, gnosis, pragmatism, that's con artistry.
It's the intellect, right? It's the intellect, right? So Freemasonry,
that's the way you trick and rule people. Yeah. And what I'm saying is that if we want to apply this to the vegans and all this nonsense, it's the same crafty, elite people behind these movements that know how to manipulate and trick people. So what the vegans are like the villagers, where Sean Connery comes in and acts like he's the reincarnation of Alexander the Great, and they're all fooled by it for a while, right? And then they see through. Eventually, the emperor has no clothes. They eventually figure out his scam. And what I'm saying is that it's the exact same thing with they're pulling the hoodwink. It's called the hoodwink in Masonic terminology. It's the same hoodwink that they're pulling on the vegans.
Yeah, it's interesting. And when you look at the Masonic philosophy, it's very tied into the evolutionary worldview, and this
absolutely
comes straight out of the lodges. People don't realize that when you can. If you want to learn what Freemasonry is actually about, you can read, Pike, Morals and Dogma, which is really long and kind of boring, a lot of it. But when you get to the end of it, he talks about what they really worship, which is it's a Luciferian ideology. And Lucifer, they believe, represents, or a part of Lucifer is the intellect, man's ability to, we receive enlightenment from the light bearer, who is Lucifer, who bestows upon man knowledge, the stealing of the Promethean fire tying into this as well. And they're really into Prometheus, obviously, as you could see through, the film Prometheus, a very Luciferian Masonic tale, with panspermia, kind of a more updated version. But yeah, they believe in through the intellect and through measure and through the square and compass, representing
the quantifying and measuring and using numbers and math to make everything essentially technocratic. That's what math builds computers. So the reasoning is that everything can be run in this technocratic AI way. It's a logical series of steps as to why they would say that. And just this week, my talk this week was on the very prophetic book from Kierkegaard, This Present Age, which he wrote in the 1840s, predicting our virtual, fake, quantified society.
Yeah, so people think that this is just the natural outcome of the progress of civilization, and this is something that's actually programmed into us, that we're meant to believe this. But this is a specific. It's a long-term plan, and you can read the people who are actually making these plans. You can read their own writings, or you can just shoot the messenger and say, "Oh no, anybody who talks about that's an idiot or they're stupid." Yeah, no, a lot of that just comes from people who don't have a philosophical or a worldview that actually is able to deal with evil, to deal with good and bad, and so they're probably better off just tricking themselves into believing that this is nothing to be concerned with, that you should never worry about anything except for eating, playing, fucking, and just basic animal level stuff that we're told to believe is all that there is. So hey, Dan Man for $1.99, thanks for the donation, man. He says, what does Jay think of Hans Hermann Hoppe?
Well, yeah, we've talked about Hoppe some. I mean, when it comes to the libertarians, certainly he's the most favorable to the kind of position that I would take. So he's definitely, if any libertarians, the free market people want a bridge to kind of come towards my camp, Hoppe is definitely the way to do it. He's definitely the most favorable libertarian to our perspective. I think his arguments that monarchies and traditional societies of that bent can potentially be more prosperous. He says that, we don't know what would have happened if the world had not seen the throne and altar, the revolutionary ethos coming to fruition. We don't know how those societies would have progressed, but he makes some very interesting arguments that it's in the interest of a monarch to allow and to desire his people to prosper. Now, that doesn't mean that all monarchies are going to operate this way or that there aren't degenerate monarchs. But that's a more complex, sophisticated question. But Hoppe is definitely, I would agree with all of his arguments on that point. And he talks about how you can't just have a society based around the generic ideas of monetary, accruing monetary wealth, GDP. This was one of the key. If you watch maybe I should tell people to watch the Peterson Zizek debate, because if you watch Peterson's opening statement, how does he end the debate, the opening statement? By talking about how capitalism has aided global GDP, as if this is the highest thing that we could attain to.
But it's so funny because you're assuming that's why do we assume that that's good? How is that good anyway? Yeah. Global GDP, who cares? You're just commodifying the world. So yeah, I mean it's sad to see people who get a bit of the truth.
iPhones and so everybody having an iPhone and having internet access and refrigerators. I mean, I mean, is that how you can you? It's almost the naivety of what the utilitarians called moral calculus. So if you watch the people who were free market and the kind of libertarian ethos as it moved into the utilitarian ethic, they actually, I'm not joking when I say this and people think it's a joke, the Benthamites and the utilitarians who come out of this school, they eventually thought that you could come up with an algorithm to figure out what made people most happy.
Yes, exactly. And these vegans who debate online, they're trying to say that, well, yeah, using numbers, we can determine somebody's well-being, and we're trying to maximize well-being, and that's the greatest moral principle. So you see the greater cultural zeitgeist, the spirit of the age is that, and it's a faulty presupposition. Why is it good to have higher GDP?
And that's why, and this is an area where Peterson was wrong, and Zizek adequately called it out, because Zizek has enough philosophical knowledge to know to question presuppositions, because he's a little bit existentialist too. So he makes a good point that after Peterson talked about global GDP growth and capitalism creating happiness, and Zizek just goes right for he's like,
what is this? What is this happiness you speak of? Is this a more happy meal? What is this? Is happy meal the meaning of life? Reason says what? Happiness? What is this? I don't know.
And he's right. What are you talking about?
But what is Zizek's position? You mentioned that he's for global government and like global technocracy. What does he want? Global technocratic communist equality states, or
technocracy. So that was the weird part, was that it was kind of like I wouldn't say he's a woke, like, I mean, was critical of technocracy, and he was actually making the point that, but he makes it's like capitalism brings the technocracy. So therefore, what we need as a solution is to go back to a democratic, freedom-based, global intercooperate. He would be for,
But
like,
that's
a
what
democratic,
that's what the free market
he
capitalism.
he wants a liberal United Nations is what he wants.
And that's also what the global capitalists are pushing. that's like Rockefeller bought the land, donated the land.
He would probably admit that, and that's why he says he's a pessimist, because he thinks that it's inevitable that it leads to transhumanism, and technocracy is the danger. So I will give him. You see, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm constantly back and forth giving one guy credit and then saying, "Well, that was terrible. Oh, he was right over here. He was right over here. He was bad over here. He was bad over here." It's if you watch the debate, you'll see exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I have to watch it.
So he says that there's a problem with transhumanism because it means that we'll basically be for an elite, right? But he's wrong to say that the solutions lay in international organizations cooperating. I mean, come on, dude, really? Yeah. Who in the 21st century actually believes the bullshit of international organizations cooperating? And even he says he's a pessimist, so maybe he doesn't even actually believe it. But I don't know. I mean, he's a funny character more than he is, I guess, interesting. But he did have valid critiques of Peterson's points on that. Like, come on, dude, GDP growth is the end of your closing statement. Get out of here.
You know, you always get some of these really triggered libertarian types who are just like, no, you just don't get it. It's like the free market. If you don't like capitalism, you're never gonna. Jay, you don't get it, dude. Don't you wear shoes? You need capitalism to have shoes, man. Like, don't you? It's ridiculous. These people, they think it's one side or the other, that there's such thing as free market capitalism, but it's just never been done right, man. There's never been a real free market capitalist system yet. It's the same thing the communists say.
There's never been a real They're the exact same as the Marxists. They're like kissing cousins.
We could do a.
And by the way, the only Marxism that exists in the world is like idiot 60-year-old university boomer professors. That's the only Marxists left, and there's not many of them. And yeah, they do have a little bit of brainwashing power, but what's bringing in the system, as you pointed out, as H.G. Wells said, it's not dumb old little Marxists. Those are tools. What's bringing in the system?
It's McMarxism. It's Disney. It's this. People don't understand, and people think we're joking. So, anyway, so we got who else? Ken Rose throwing $5. Thanks a lot. Ken Rose says communism, progressivism, fascism, socialism essentially fall under the same redistribution model, and all were born out of capitalism. It's no surprise. So yeah, I mean, when you study, the Enlightenment philosophy and you look at where all these ideologies come from, they all have a similar daddy. And yes, so they are not the answer. In fact, there's really not much of a difference between capitalism, unleashed, and Marxism, right? They both lead to, capitalism unfettered leads to Marxism, which is what Marx even said. It's even what Marx said. So I don't know, I guess.
Yeah, so this was another misunderstanding that Peterson has. Marx was not anti-capitalist. Marx believed that capitalism was a necessary phase following feudalism, but that eventually it would give rise to the proletariat rising up and overthrowing the bourgeoisie. So now that didn't happen. So, that's why there's not a whole lot of Marxist, Orthodox, classical Marxist left. There's like one professor in Greece who's still an Orthodox Marxist. But this is when Zizek replies to Peterson, that's the first thing he says is like, there aren't any Marxists left. What are you talking about? Marxism? No. And Zizek was right. He's like, what's bringing this in is the Fortune 100. So that's why, this is a dialectic. And until you understand dialectics, you'll never, ever get out of this trap.
And they're all based on materialism. They're all based on materialism. They're all based on these like fluffy.
They have an atheistic presupposition on both sides. Right. That's where they start.
People, the guys that are triggered and crying in the chat, they're always like, well, give me the answer. What's the answer? What if it's not communism or capitalism? It's not materialism, guys. We can't be basing everything on freaking materialism and on this bullshit. The Enlightenment philosophy is what unleashed this hell on the world, the revolutionary worldview that you're engaging in, whether you are a capitalist or a Marxist, you're engaging in this fake dialectic, and it's neither end.
Yeah, if somebody specifically wants to look into what we believe that the traditional Orthodox position, and it's kind of similar to the traditional Western Catholic position prior to the Reformation and all that, and prior to the West seeing the rise of capitalism. The Roman Catholic position is called distributism. Orthodox view is called sobernost, which is an actual social, how the society is conceived of in Orthodox philosophy. So you can look up sobernost if you specifically want to get into reading about that. There's plenty of competent Orthodox philosophers for centuries who have written on these topics. So there is a different answer in it. So you can't isolate one area of like economics and try to mold life around.
I build a whole global structure and planetary system all about the economics, right? GDP.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. So yeah, it's not materialistic. It's got to be it's a spiritual war. This is not an economic war. And until you guys get that, you're going to keep, thinking that you're going to vote in your savior every 4 years. And, Ron Paul 2.0 is going to save you in 2020.
That's why the politicians always spout this bullshit about, jobs and trade and GDP, right?
Yeah.
Because they know that the population thinks that these tired old slogan statements is what's going to mobilize them to go out to the polls again. And, this time around it's going to be different, and they're going to bring the jobs back, and they're going to do this and that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So yeah, thanks for the questions, guys. Ken Rose, great. That was not even a question. That was a comment, and that was a good one, man. Alexander for 199 says thoughts on the Noahide laws. Is that like the Talmud thing? If that's
right. Well, so in Judaism, Orthodox Judaism, there's the conception that if Gentiles want to convert, they don't necessarily have to convert, but they need to follow the prescriptions of Noah, with the covenant that God made with Noah. And what's interesting is that in Orthodox theology, we already have an integrated version of the Noahide laws. In fact, if you read Acts 15, which is where they have the first council of the church with the apostles present, and the first issue the first controversy that the church is having to deal with after the resurrection of Christ, as the church is founded in the book of Acts and spreads, first controversy is over Gentile converts coming into a predominantly originally Jewish church. So what happens is that they actually look back to, if you read the decision of the council in Acts 15, it's based on the Noahic covenant. It's the Noahide laws, you could say. So the answer is that we already have the solution, and it was decided in Acts 15 that Gentiles who converted to Orthodoxy or to the church, which is, we believe, the extension of Old Testament Israel, the true Israel, they lay out what's necessary based on the Noahic covenant. So in other words, the argument is that, well, they don't have to be circumcised. The person who converts to Christ doesn't have to be circumcised because there were righteous men prior to the giving of circumcision, namely Noah.
So it's a little different from the Protestant view, where it's like, we do away with, any even reference to the Old Testament. Sometimes the Protestants are just, I'm just going to read the New Testament.
Correct. Many Protestants and evangelicals have that view, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then you have an opposite extreme of many Protestants and evangelicals who want to have all the Mosaic ceremonies reintroduced into the church.
They want to Judaize everything, right? Which is also...
So there's two different extremes that I believe Orthodoxy avoids there.
Yeah, so it's not.
But that's a great question. But a lot of people don't know, even in the Orthodox world, or even in biblical theology, a lot of people have not picked up on the fact that Acts 15 is referencing the Noahic covenant and then the laws given to Noah. That's the basis for what Gentiles would be expected to do to come into the church.
Mm-hmm. All right. Good question. Alchemist Rising for $5. Thanks for the donation. Alchemist Rising says, we know about the global control agenda. Let's hear how we break free. Well, definitely not through embracing all the philosophies that you're given, right? This Luciferian philosophies, the Freemasonic philosophy that you're given through the pop culture. It's not going to be through, animal activism and through, taking away our own rights, protesting to have our own rights taken away. And, it's not going to be through any of these, false dialectic systems. I would say it's a spiritual war. This is not, you don't break free by, buying into a new identity. Like it goes beyond just physical, it goes beyond economics. And, ultimately you got to seek the truth. You got to seek what's true.
Yeah, it's all those different areas. I mean, you couldn't talk about the practical stuff of, it's time to break free from like video games dominating your life, whatever modern forms of media, sports. This is another one I really need to touch on, because men in the West are complete children because they've been raised to worship sports. That's as big as video games, probably.
Well,
So
sports, porn, video games, these things, they just wreck dudes.
And they cannot run your life. So you need to get to where you can start breaking free from that. You need to reorient your life around getting into educating yourself about things that men traditionally would educate themselves about: being a man, masculinity, philosophy. These are traditionally masculine disciplines. Actual science, not bullshit Joe Rogan, Neil deGrasse Tyson stuff. That's not real science. Not going and blasting your brain on shrooms. That's not how you break free from the system.
All Joe Rogan, dude. Gotta smoke DMT. If you just smoke DMT, you'll see it all, dude. Nothing matters. Like, it's all just an illusion, bro. And we're all Joe Rogan.
So, and I'm not just trying to say it's education. I mean, like Tristan said, there's a spiritual component to it. I believe orthodoxy is true. So, you want to get into scripture. You want to read the Orthodox Study Bible. In my view, that's what I would promote. You also want to learn basic logic. You want to know the basic fallacies. You want to reform your diet. You want to reform all areas of your life to where you actually can flourish.
Exactly.
So
Stop buying into the toxic
things.
culture, right? You get sold toxic culture through food. You get fed a bullshit fake diet that's going to make you dumb, that's going to not let your brain and body properly develop, and that's going to, create Disgenics type situation and actually ruin your children's health. So, health is a big aspect of it, health physically as well as spiritually. And
it's also not a legalistic thing like we were talking about earlier with diet. It's the same way with like music or like I will occasionally play a video game. It does not dominate my life. It's not I don't have a problem with that.
If you're playing 12 hours of video games a day and that's your whole freaking life, you're going to get sick and you're going to feel like shit.
And it's not about that you can't ever watch a football game or be involved in sports. It's about those things being idols and controlling your life. And if they are, then they're going to program you, because that's what they're there to do, is to suffuse this information into you. Like I don't know, think about Deus Ex, right? I mean, I'm not criticizing the franchise. I know that it's a kind of an anti-transhumanist type of thing, but what I'm saying is that even in the video games, you're starting to see this kind of propaganda seep into that as well. So you're getting fed the propaganda, whether you're at a sports game and you're watching Katy Perry perform and you need to join the military. That's propagandizing you, right? And so sports is going to propagandize you just as much as any of this other stuff. And I think we overlook the fact that, because we think that sports is masculine. We think, oh, sports, man, that's what guys are into, sport. But actually, guys are just fat and drinking beer and watching other men play sports,
living vicariously.
Right?
Yeah. And then same with the video games. You're playing in someone else's imagination. Hey, fine, every once in a while play a few hours, but it's like all day long living in someone else's imagination. It's pathetic. You got to get beyond this. It's a trap.
The fanboy crap. I mean, okay, I love movies, but I don't let movies dominate my life. But I see guys are like, I made that video making fun of that Star Wars guy. That's because I'm making fun. I'm satirizing this giant number of the population that has been emasculated, right, by freaking stupid ass Star Wars fantasy shit.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like, without the spiritual basis, people are at risk of worshiping idols. All right, so if you're just you're gonna worship any idol that gets thrown before you. So you've got culture is basically this giant idol creation machine.
It's an idol machine. It's an idol factory. Yeah, exactly.
And you become a product as well. And that's what even Jacques Attali in the book that what's that book called? The Brief History of the Future says the ultimate goal is making man a product of the culture.
And because people have lost their traditional ideas of where you would find your meaning and your identity, what they replace that with is a consumerist model of, you can choose, do you want to be a sports fanatic? Are you more of a nerdy dude? Would you like to be a gamer?
Yeah, are you like, are you goth? Are you goth and you buy your stuff at Hot Topic, or are you just like a slut and you buy your stuff at Forever 17? What is that, like Forever 17? 21, Forever 21.
Maybe you'd like to be a Star Wars fanboy and go to Disney and live in Star Wars world when you get the money.
And cry when there's a new trailer. Cry tears of joy and cry from your penis, goopy tears of joy when Star Wars comes out with a new trailer. I mean, it's just it's total nonsense, right? It's like, it's fine. Watch your show. Jessica and I watched Game of Thrones last night, but it's like, when the whole world is just obsessing over this nonsense, it's not healthy. So it's like, that's why there are certain as a society has to be built and structured around metaphysics, around reality, which reality is not strictly physical. So it's all those things. The physical body, you got to take care of it. Diet's an important part of that. Getting outside, right? Get natural light. Hey, if you want to get involved in local politics, all power to you. I'd hit nothing but really hard brick stone walls when I started playing around with try to get into local politics in California, at least. But hey, maybe that's an option too, right? If you see stuff going on in your area that maybe you can get involved with, you can get involved in these things. But I think even in economics, right? Obviously, we're not going to get a restructure of this crazy economic system we have now. But you do vote with your dollars. The classic capitalism thing. Well, you just don't buy their products. But there's something to that, right?
No, there's truth to that. Absolutely.
Boycott.
Try
don't
not to support the Fortune 100. Don't go to the big box stores.
Amazon.
Local. All that stuff is absolutely true. I mean, I'm pro buy gold, have Bitcoin. Nothing wrong with any of that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think also local food production, getting involved in animal husbandry, get your own chickens. I think moving to a rural area for a lot of people can be real beneficial if you're not very happy with city life, like getting out of the cities, getting away from the degeneracy where you're constantly being tempted by the nonsense, the degenerate culture, the bar scene. Quit going to bars. Quit trying to pick up hoes at the bar. Find a good woman, marry her, and make children, and live in a place where you can actually grow some of your own food or have animals. And hey, support local farmers and ranchers. Go to farmers markets, build real communities, talk to your neighbors. Subscribe to Jay's analysis and buy the products at primaledgehealth.com.
Yeah, I mean, go to a local Orthodox church, check it out. Find a good solid one. Find a Russian Orthodox church. Find a Serbian Orthodox church.
There you go.
Visit them, see what you think. I mean, building normal human relations and not living in the virtual world. I mean, that's a big temptation for me because I do so much work online, just to not get caught up in just living my whole day in the freaking internet.
Yeah. Exactly. Get in the real world. Quit hanging out on the internet all day. You're going to watch one of these streams, hang out in the stream, all good, but maybe don't click on the next video. Get up, get outside. Maybe don't just, go jump on Pornhub for 3 hours and zone out while your mind's being programmed with all this degeneracy. Get out in the real world. So there you go. All right. So... These free market capitalists in the chat are hilarious. It's so annoying. They don't get it. They can't understand it.
I keep trying to find somebody to debate.
They keep conflating capitalism with free markets, and it's sad because they seem so woke otherwise. Capitalism and free markets, it's totally different. It's totally different. We need real free market. Show us the free market. Where has this existed ever? Show us. Where does it exist? And how do you prevent monopolization, and how do you prevent the spread of degeneracy in that culture? It doesn't exist. There's no free market. It's a pie-in-the-sky dream. Just like there's no true communism that ever existed. They've all done it wrong. Everyone did the vegan diet wrong.
Go watch my debate with Kokesh, because Kokesh was that kind of libertarian style dude, and what we did was got to the basic presuppositions of that whole philosophy. And the reason that I believe, and many believe, I won that debate was just because I don't think Kokesh had really had his presuppositions questioned before.
Yeah, it's like, you asked him at one point, what is preventing somebody in the free market capitalist system? And if this is, the ultimate thing is just, the free market, is there anything wrong with putting up a giant billboard of bestiality in your neighborhood? That's like, it's not harming you. It's not breaking the non-aggression principle. It's what's wrong with that? It's not harming you at all physically. Non-aggression principle not being broken. Why can't I just put a giant billboard of, dildos up in front of the school? There's no...
Yes, and I think he had not encountered the question of toxic culture before. It had never occurred to him that there could be intentionally created toxic culture. And that was kind of, I think, an eye opener, hopefully, for him. I doubt he's changed his mind, but I'm just saying that was kind of like, I don't know. I never thought about toxic culture. Well, yeah, giant corporations can create toxic culture. And I know that that's not true capitalism, but
There is no true capitalism.
What is true capitalism? Oh, it's this. Oh, it's minarchism. Oh, it's yeah, I know. I've heard all that debates. I went through that. I know I had a whole Ayn Rand, von Mises, von Hayek phase. But what started waking me up to this was when I looked at David Rockefeller's memoirs and he talked about studying under von Hayek. I think I said earlier von Mises. I meant von Hayek. He did his thesis under von Hayek. And I realized that, what about usury? What about why did Christendom ban usury for the first 1,000 years before the papacy eventually accepted it? Well, there's a reason for that. That's because we don't let that kind of a monster loose, because what it produces is a rapacious, sterile society. And even Dante saw this. Dante puts the usurers down there with the sodomites, because usury produces a sterile sodomite type of situation.
Yeah.
Degeneracy. I'm saying that's it. Whether you believe that or not, you think that's crazy. I'm just making the point that that's in Dante's Inferno for a reason. He saw it that way. And that's how, Christianity for the first millennium, when of Christendom, Byzantine Empire and so forth, you start seeing these problems. I think Byzantium even started to eventually adopt usury, and that could be part of its downfall. But those kinds of questions were never raised in any of the libertarian thought that I saw. And yes, I'll give credit to Hoppe for admitting some of these points. Okay, so he does admit some of that stuff, and that's good. But that doesn't mean that this, again, atheistic, enlightenment-based, Adam Smith, David Ricardo, Jefferson Locke type worldview makes the other thing that caught my attention was when I realized that von Hayek, at the end of the book, he says we need a global government to enforce laws so that we can have safe trade. And then I well, now wait a minute. I thought that we were here to fight globalism. And then the appendix of Road to Serfdom by von Hayek is about having a global government.
Yeah, there's just so much. There's so much nonsense in it. The chats.
In order to have trade, you have to have security. And you can't just say, well, it'll be a privatized security. It doesn't work like that. You've got to have some common bond. And I even made that point to Adam in the debate where I was like, okay, dude, I mean, at some point there's got to be a commonality. And the Enlightenment philosophers understood this. And they even said, like, Kant has an essay where Kant says, oh, if we just allow free trade amongst all the nations, we'll have a global government, because everybody will see that it's in their best interest to have the same laws for trade, and it'll bring world peace. How ridiculous is this? Who actually thinks that free trade will bring world peace? Look at the world.
This leads into, well, let me, first of all, Alexander, thanks a lot, man. $1.99, sending $2, says, how was your Pasha and Agape Vestas? Very good, man. Very good. Time with family. Jay, good Pasha?
Yeah, Pascha, for those that don't know, is Easter. That's just the Greek term for Passover, which we believe that. By the way, can I briefly point out that every year the meme goes around that Easter is the worship of Ishtar and pagans. It's not. For Orthodoxy, Easter is called Pascha, which is just the Greek word for Passover. So if you read Exodus 12, 13, 14, you know about what Passover is. For us, Jesus is the fulfillment of Passover. Hence, we call it Pascha. So mine was very intense. It was both spiritually rewarding and difficult because of personal issues. But it was a bittersweet, and that's a good thing. So thank you for asking.
There you go. So Eric S for 20 Canadian dollars says a free market free from government regulation would be healthy for society. This would never happen, and it is delusional to believe it the same way it would be delusional to promote a society of everyone being healthy in diet.
Yeah, but that's not true, because there have been experiments in history. America was an early experiment in a free market type of system. And I understand that even that's not a true free market, but there is no true free market because you can never have trade requires some kind of understanding about the realities of the world, that other people are not going to be fair and they're not going to abide by your principles. Other nations are going to have spies. There are corporate spies. Other people are going to do devious things. And to just have no government and to have no laws is literally 17-year-old understanding of the world.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that a lot of these people get so into it. They're usually in their early 20s, their late teens, early 20s.
Right.
They've realized that, there's a lot of corruption in government, and then that's the first thing they come upon. It takes like 3 to 5 years usually to get out of that phase, and then you realize
because as you get older, you realize that government is actually owned by corporations. And you say, but that's the monopoly capitalism and not the true free market capitalism. And then you try to figure out, well, how are you ever going to have people adopting a non-aggression principle in the free market? Right. So they try to be evangelists for it, like Kokesh, and they try to go out and evangelize for this gospel of free market, non-aggression principle. But guess what? That's still atheistic. And if you're consistent with your atheism, there's no reason why I have to accept the NAP, bro. Fuck your NAP.
So, all right, yeah, the chats. Well, we appreciate the super chats, but you guys are going all over the place. You're bringing it everywhere. Did Neoplatonism influence orthodoxy? You've talked about this. Which video should he watch of yours to learn about that?
Yeah, I did a whole series. Just watch these series, Traditional Philosophy and Metaphysics. There's 12 lectures, and it's a whole playlist on my page, and I cover that issue extensively.
And didn't you make a video also about Pascha not being of pagan influence, not being based on paganism?
Well, actually, we talked about it in the last boiler room, but yeah, just look up what Easter is. It's not pagan. I mean, I'm saying look up Orthodox Pascha, and the earliest versions of the celebration of Pascha in the church are Eastern. They all come out of the East in like 150. In fact, there was a debate. The early church in like 150 to 190 was debating what the right date to celebrate Pascha was in the East. So it is an Orthodox service, just like Christmas is originally an Orthodox service. It comes out of the East as a liturgical holiday. Neither of those, just because they fall on the solstice, that has nothing to do with the significance of the religion itself. So the Passover, it's Passover from Exodus 12 and 14. That's not based on solstices and pagan gods.
All right, there you go. What's the good and bad in Julius Evola? I don't know about Julius Evola. You want to hit on that real quick, or do you have somewhere that you could direct?
Yeah, Evola is one of the perennialists, the traditionalists. Well, he's openly conceived. He was an Italian Baron Julian, Italian fascist. And the pros are that he understands tradition, he understands monarchy. He definitely would favor more organic societies, more medieval type of societies. The cons are, he writes a book called Eros and Metaphysics of Sex, Eros and whatever. I read it years ago. And he's pro Crowley, pro degeneracy. So
what about, all right, Exodus 580. Thanks a lot for the donation, man. $5. He says, what about Gary North's 5-point covenantal economic model?
I think you could find value in North or Rushdoony. I still recommend people read Rushdoony's One in the Many and Rushdoony's Messianic Character of American Education, because he adequately critiques American education. One in the Many is a good philosophical treatise about dialectics. And maybe you could find some good stuff in North, but I don't really recommend Gary North anymore, just because he's so Lou Rockwell, so libertarian, and I left that world when I was 23, and I haven't really looked back. I mean, I had a phase where I was kind of, thinking, well, maybe we can ally with libertarianism when I was 30, 32. But I don't think there's not much there.
Yeah, it's funny. It's always an early 20s phase. I know some people stick in it for a while, I guess. But all right, Ted Benison, what's up, man? Thanks for the $5 super chat. Says, Jay, did you see the news about CIA connected sex cult with St. Lawrence College?
Mm-mm.
Nope. Either did I. And I've never heard of Gary North's 5-point covenantal economic model, so I couldn't say anything about that one anyways. Yeah, so it looks like the super chats took us for a ride. So a lot of these were directed at Jay. I'm gonna have to send Jay via PayPal some of the super chat
don't worry about it,
cash.
man.
Well, all right, man. Well, one person in particular demanded it, so I got to at least send you half of that nice $20 super chat that guy sent. Yeah, but you guys make sure to subscribe or go over and subscribe to Jay's channel. It's Jay Dyer on YouTube, but your website is Jay's Analysis. And if you're interested in learning a little.
Yeah, if they want more than what I offer at the website is, subscription service, and then you get access to the full talks and lectures. So there's a lot of half talks, and then, paywall for the second half. It's a lot of philosophy, a lot of geopolitics, a lot of theology, a lot of what we've been talking about, 28 books on globalism from the top social engineers. So that's what we do. And then I do a lot of satire and crazy, ridiculous stuff too. So tonight I'll have the video posted about the Peterson Zizek debate. So this week, real quickly, I did on Boiler Room, we talked about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the Kumare cult, fake cult, Nietzsche, Kierkegaard, Dostoevsky, Kubrick and the Alchemy of Man, Nicolas Cage and Wicker Man, Dune. I was happy with my Dune video. I think it came out pretty good. So that's kind of what I've been talking about lately.
There you go. Awesome. So, yeah, you check out more at jaysanalysis.com. Check out his book, too. I haven't gotten to dive too deep into Esoteric Hollywood 2, but I've got it right here. I love you did a good job with the selection of films, American Ultra.
I actually, I'm very happy with 2. 2's, I think, a better book. I mean, I'm very happy with 1 because it's the first one, but I think part 2 is a better written book. My writing got better, obviously, but yeah, and then part 1, is good too. And if you want to support me, get it from me and not Amazon, because authors don't make anything from Amazon.
Yeah, just don't buy things from Amazon in general. Screw Amazon.com. Same with Whole Foods.
At my website, there's a shop. So
right. If you're trying to get healthy foods, don't get it from Whole Foods. Find whoever in your area is competing with Whole Foods and get your groceries there, folks. Don't buy from freaking Whole Foods. And also, for meats and stuff, you can go directly to the farmers. Talk to the guy. What's his name? It was S2 Ranch or 2S Ranch, but he has the website was I forget the name of the website. But if you check out my talk with the cattle rancher the other day with Bart Simmons, theprovisionhouse.com was his website. You guys can get good meat, especially if you're in Texas. Get stuff locally. Shop at your local farmers market. Get stuff from your local producers. And if you want to learn a little bit more about nutrition, dive deeper into that stuff, you make sure to check out more of the content here at Primal Edge Health. Thanks all you guys for watching. If you're interested in taking it a step further with your diet and getting your food choices with using animal foods, animal-based fats and proteins, use the Carnivore Cookbook, which is available only on our website. No Amazon.com there. You can get it at primaledgehealth.com. The next Keto and Carnivore Collective, our group coaching situation, is going on Sunday. So the next Keto and Carnivore Collective, this is the last week to sign up for that one for the May Keto and Carnivore Collective. So that's starting this Sunday. So you can sign up this week. It's our group coaching where we do 2 live interactive voice chats per week where we answer all your questions. We do one of those as a lecture, kind of like a lecture lesson. And then at the end, we do Q&A as well. So we get deep into whatever you want with your diet. And we go further than just diet, right? We teach principles of movement, getting up, getting around, getting out in the real world, moving your body, light exposure, proper circadian rhythm entrainment, training your body to sleep at the right time, light exposure at the right time. All these things very, very important for health as well. So check out the Keto and Carnivore Collective if you're interested in diving deeper into that and getting some personalized nutrition coaching from us over here. So Timaholic sent in a super chat. Thanks a lot for the support, man. We see you in here all the time. Lots of good names here in the chat. Lots of people dropping super chats today. So thanks for keeping the show alive. And because you never know when you're going to get demonetized.